Test 1, 2, check. Okay, we got this mic is working. Check, check, check. Okay. Yep, there. It's working.
Except 1, 2, go.
And then that'll make it live. First, but if Test 1, 2. Okay. Press it once. Ooh, that's not good. Turn it off. Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Check. Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Check, check, check. Test, test, test. Why aren't you working? Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Check, check, check. Check, check, check. Test 1, 2. Somehow that worked. Why did that work? Test 1, 2. Check, check, check. Test 1, 2. Okay, we got a test 1, 2. Check, check, check. And okay. Oh, wow, that's loud. Okay, let's put this in like that. And then let's have you talk.
Good morning. Oops. Don't need that much, right? Okay. Well, I'm going to ask, nobody has a question yet, so I'm going to start asking you questions. How's that? What kind of pistol are you shooting, sir? Okay.
P226
Oh, okay,
and MK25.
okay.
Springfield XDM.
9 mil?
Glock 17.
Block 45.
Model 45. Right.
Smith and Wesson MP EZ 380.
Okay, good. Oh, yes, I remember that now.
Glock 17.
Good. Very good. Did everybody acquire a holster that they think is going to be suitable for the class? Tomorrow I will have a box of holsters, mostly for Glock. But if anybody's holster is not working out, we can probably loan you something. I,
The Gen 5 have slightly different outer dimensions. Just a little bit, huh? From what I understand. I was trying to get one for her in time, but I didn't get it in time. I don't know if you have a couple.
well,
If not,
we'll try different holsters.
yeah, see what we can find.
See what we can find forward. One thing I'm going to just touch on, in case any of you end up taking advantage of the program that I'm going to mention. When we started this business, this school 20 years ago, we would lose a lot of students. By the end of day 2, they couldn't keep up. They weren't safe in their gun handling. They would commit safety violations. And so we couldn't let them go to the live fire range. Now, there's a reason every school out there just about has had accidents. Frontside, Nevada brags that they've only had 18 students shot on their ranges. The Gunsight Academy, which is a very good school where I've worked, where I got a lot of my initial training. I went to Gunsight, Arizona when I was fairly new in this business and did six-day weeks. 3 weeks on the 1911, 1 week on the AR-15, a week on bolt action rifles, and a week on revolvers. So I think a lot of Gunsight, they're one of the better schools out there. And I'm aware of several accidents that they've had. Some of the top name instructors that I know back east have had accidents. I've been teaching for 50-something years and have a perfect safety record. And I will not allow any of you or any other students to break that record. We are absolutely dead serious about adherence to the safety rules. And so if somebody's not keeping up at the end of day 2, they're not safe, what are we going to do? Let them go live ammo the next day? We can't do that. So in the past, what we've had to do is cut those people and let them start over. Come back, start over, and hopefully, almost every time, they would get it the next time. But the other thing that we've done that's been very successful, we usually have a pretty good ratio of instructors out there. So let's suppose that one of our students is falling behind, they're making some safety errors. They're not learning it at the speed of the rest of the class. And what we do is to take Ron or Rick or one of our top instructors and because everything you're going to do here is going to be coach pupil. You're going to coach each other constantly. One of you will shoot and one will coach all the time. If you're struggling a little, we'll put one of our instructors in place of that coach, that student coach, and you will have one-on-one instruction with one of our instructors. And by doing so, we have not lost one student in a number of years. So what you're getting now is one-on-one instruction at the price of a class, right? It works out great for you, but anyway, we only have so many spots to do it. That's why we try to keep our class down to 12. We have room for 14. We try to hold it at 12, not book more than 12 students. That way, if I need to take one of these guys and stick him on the line with one of you, now we have 13. If I was already booked out at 14, the range isn't wide enough to accommodate anymore. So then I lose that option, which is why we try to hold it to about 12 students. Oh. Are we all here? I wonder, 2, 3. We're supposed to have 9.
Except that 7, 8, missing one.
My wife Stacy will be here later. And when we started this school, she and I would co-instruct everything. All the lectures, we'd stand together and take turns back and forth. Since our son was born 10 years ago, we haven't been doing that. She can't get out as much, but we're going to do that today. So for the first time in years, we're going to co-teach this, so we'll see how it works out. She's very good. She's very, very good. So I'm going to sit down here, take a look at my PowerPoint for a second. We're going to get going. What's that? Oh, yeah. Thank you. Okay, well, yeah, I'm gonna answer a couple of questions and then we'll start when he gets here. So we got 3 minutes. I'm looking for questions. Surely you have something that you don't know. Yes, ma'am.
List that says print out copies of the articles on the website. When I went to the website, I didn't find any articles. Do you need to log in as a member
No.
to find articles?
What's the deal, Ron?
Okay. So, what is articles?
Well, one of the most impactful ones that I'm aware of is surrender is never an option. Whether it's American History Creed, American Creed, I don't remember exactly what that was. But there are several other articles. There's some stuff about 30 minutes why I don't need professional firearms training. A few small things like that, but some mindset.
The more you know in general, the better prepared you're going to be. If you have a general background, not just specific to a class, and something comes up you haven't seen before, you might be able to figure it out. It's kind of like malfunctions. You have a malfunction, but you know how the gun works, you can probably figure it out. If you understand how the gun functions and it's not functioning correctly, usually you can look at it and say, okay, I know what I need to do. We do have malfunction clearances, which you will learn. Basically, you'll memorize 4 malfunction clearances, most common. But even then, we have a fail-safe or a, what's the word I'm looking for? But it's, if you just a go-to. So for example, type 4 malfunction, failure to extract or feedway stoppage of some kind. So we'll lock the slide to the river, pull the magazine out, run the slide, rack it 3 times, insert a fresh magazine, run it again. That's the fail-safe. It's dark, we don't really know exactly what's going on. It's hard to see. This will clear anything. But on the other hand, if I can see what's wrong, I might be able to leave some of those steps out. So it's just because I have a general knowledge, I know how the gun functions. So it's outside the curriculum of 4 malfunction clearances. But I don't always have to fall back on the fail-safe because it's a long way around. So I'm just saying, just general knowledge is all helpful. And on the website, we have a bunch of articles. And there's a lot of things that you may find quite interesting and maybe helpful. Ron mentioned one, and I'll follow up on that. It's 30 reasons why people do not seek professional firearms training. So it'll give you the reason, close the reason up. So, you know, people, I grew up around guns. When someone says, I grew up around guns, get the hell away from them. Because what that means is they've had no, if they even had training in Boy Scouts, they would have brought it up. They got nothing. But they think they know something, which makes them dangerous. So another one is, why would you not take a professional class? And yes, ma'am.
I had a question about what's the difference between the close contact fire position and the guard position, or below that?
A guard position is more of a low ready. The gun's out at about a 45-degree angle in two hands, right? Hold it. Good morning. The guard position is a two-hand low ready at about a 45-degree angle. It's a two-hand position. Close contact is a one-hand shooting position where the support hand is used to guard the gun.
Close contact.
So it's what you're trying to do is you're trying to be able to engage a target who's so close that he's a threat to your possession of your gun. But you have to be able to keep him from taking your gun while you're busy shooting him. And you use your support hand to keep him off your gun. At the same time, you're firing. This is one of our basic positions, close contact. When we draw the gun, we go through the close contact position every time, so that if the situation requires shooting from arm's reach, we don't have to invent a whole new thing. We're always passing through that. If we're going to go to an aim shot at arm's length, we're still passing through close contact. So at any point, we could stop and switch, go to one or go to the other.
He wants to listen to me.
Any other questions? That was a good question. Made me think a little bit. Any other questions? None. Anyway, so the one on the article on our website about the 30 reasons why people won't take training, there was only one that really holds water, and it goes like this. I've convinced myself and my spouse that I know what I'm doing and I would be able to protect our family in a worst case scenario. What if I go to class and I suck? Worse yet, what if she's better? And so they don't train. This is really the number one reason right here. It's an ego thing. People want, when you get out there and have instructors critiquing you constantly, always in a positive manner, but they're constantly trying to make you better, trying to do, let's do that just a little bit more this way. And you feel like a student. Well, that's because you are. A lot of people don't like that. They don't want to put their ego aside and let someone else correct them. So that ego is a big problem. And how many of you have never shot a pistol in your life? Raise your hand. Typically, in a class like this, we'd have one or two. One or two people would raise their hand, I've never shot a pistol in my life. And I'll say, you'll be my best shooter. And all these guys that have been shooting for 40 years will start chuckling. But guess what? She'll always be my best shooter. She doesn't have to unlearn anything. No, if you've shot before, there's a high likelihood we're going to be changing some things you do. make you more safe, effective, and efficient. And the more you've done it, the harder it's going to be to change it. Don't have no fear. We're good at it. We'll get it changed. But yeah, the clean slate has got an advantage. The less you've shot, the easier it's going to be for you.
Just means you
Okay.
don't know how to do it wrong, which is an advantage.
We're just about to go to the prayer and start the class. Do you want me to wait?
Oh, sure. Okay.
No, I think we're, Brad is here. We're good to go.
Okay, sir.
And you guys got your microphones. It's good. The only thing I'm going to ask is that he's asked me to record this. So anybody who has anything to say, you raise your hand and give my wife enough time to bring the microphone to you. Does that make sense? And just remember, raise your hand if you have something to say.
Very good.
I can bring down the microphone. Yeah, let me see if it's close enough.
Yes, sir.
That looks good. Yeah, I think that's fine.
I think so.
And you should wear that all the time. That's like a perfect place for a mic.
Yeah, I should wear this thing too all the time.
Yeah.
And
So, let me
my
bring-
doctor is mad at me. He says, "Are you wearing your sling?"
This one might have.
Sometimes.
Yeah, my name is Ron.
Ron is, in fact, I think he's trying to secretly take over the whole operation. He makes our targets. He does a lot of the emailing. When you got your class details emailed to you, almost certainly Ron sent them.
Only recently.
Yeah, but he does it all. He knows our curriculum better than any of our other instructors. We have about 20 instructors. By
That's
the
one,
way,
two, check, check.
By the way, they are volunteers. They are not paid employees. They don't work for us. They are free agents. And when we have a class, I send them all a notice. Then that someone will send back and say, "Okay, I'll be there to help." Why do we have a cadre of instructors willing to give up some of them every weekend? Ron hasn't missed one of our classes. He's missed what, 2 in 20 years?
Well, it's only been about 12 years.
12 years, okay. So he's almost always out there. His weekends are pretty much dedicated to helping us. And there's several reasons why these guys tell us that they do it. One is because they believe in our mission. We're out here doing God's work. We're literally teaching people how to protect their families in a worst case scenario. And we believe it's our purpose. And so they want to be part of that purpose. And then the second reason is because, and with no humility at all, I consider myself one of the best firearms instructors in the country. And most of the top firearm instructors agree with that and would tell you so. And so by training, instructing, and assisting under my tutelage, then they're getting better all the time. They learn new things, and they don't have to do the 50 years of experience that I've done. They can get that from me in a much shorter time. So they become better shooters and better instructors. That's to their benefit, and they help with the mission, which is to everybody's benefit. Yes, sir.
So I think we're ready to go. And you mentioned how long he's been doing this for, right? Like you've been with them for how many years?
12.
12 years. That's amazing.
I thought it was more, but
Yeah.
he's
It's only 2024 now. I started in 12.
Do me a favor, pull your hands down and talk again.
I missed
No, it's perfect.
3 classes.
Okay. I just
in
wanted
that
to see if
time
it's
frame.
echoing off your arms.
Okay.
Yeah, so you got a lot of experience here, and you'll have a couple more trainers, huh?
More than likely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which is amazing. And just to give you guys a thought for the value here, okay? No, we're just right before we start. So, sorry. Yeah, that's good. I got one job and I'm gonna do it. Okay, what movie? Anyone? I like Kick Butt. Okay, it's the corniest movie you'll ever watch in your life. It's a
No, it
on
won't.
Star Trek.
I haven't seen it.
But just to give you guys a feel for what you're getting here, if you were to, you understand that this type of course is like usually $3,000. For the amount of trainers to people, it's about $6,000. Okay, so when I was talking to them, I'm like, you guys got to raise your price. I mean, this is way too low. People don't understand the value of what they're getting. They're getting the best trainer they can get. They're getting 1:2 ratio, and they're about 1/10 the price, and people don't understand that. And so, just to let you guys know, those who made this decision here, like I got giddy as soon as I found out he was in Utah. I called you, I just called you out of the blue, and I just said, "Is there any way you can come and speak to our people? Is there any way you can be part of this?" And that's how valuable this is. My wife, I'm sitting there thinking, you have to come. Okay, she's half owner of the company. By the way, have you guys met my wife? Julie. This is Julie. She owns half the company. Can I tell you right before we get started? I know we're a few minutes late. The best
better
half. So I used to have a card back in the day. I had a card that said president or something like that, and her card said the president's wife, the real boss, and it really said the real boss on the card. But I believe that completely. Just to give you guys a very personal story about what happened a few years ago, back in 2020. The guy who we went through a big fraud in my company. My employee went to prison for 10 years, and we got left almost in bankruptcy. We didn't have anything to spend. I mean, not even we had $1 one time per day. I don't even know how we came up with that dollar, okay, for that day. We started in 2020. My friend called me and said, "Hey, we need to, your website's still getting a whole bunch of traffic. Can I get it going again? We store it cheap." I said, "Sure, that's fine." I was doing other businesses at the time, and they started growing. And he came up to me and he said, "Can I borrow like 10, 15,000?" I'm like, "Oh no, not again." It's like, am I going to get frauded or all that? And he took it and started doing great things with it. So I was like, okay, let's get started again. And we started out garages. Then we went to storage units. And then when we got too big for storage units, we had like 10, 12 huge storage units. Then we went to a warehouse, and then we started growing. He called me up and he says, "I got this place in South Jordan to open up a store next door. We didn't even have this side yet. Next door, we should open up a store." And I'm like, "Oh, so much work. And I just don't want to do it. I'm so busy with my other businesses. I'm too busy with everything else. I cannot do this." And he said, "No, I think we're supposed to do this." And I'm like, "No, it's just not. I don't think that's it." I talked to my wife, and I said, "Yeah, he wants to do this." She said this, and she doesn't know if she remembers. I don't even know if she remembers it. She just goes, "We got to help more people. Huh? Things are coming. Heavenly Father wants us to help more people. You should consider it. You should think if we should do the store." So I was like, "Ah, yeah, right." And the next morning, I was in my office, and I knelt down and I asked Heavenly Father, "Am I supposed to do the store?" He goes, "Yes." I'm like, but it was because of her. So she's the one who got me to even ask him. And so that's why we're even here today, just to let you know. So you guys haven't had a chance to meet my wife, but she's the reason why the store exists. So anyway.
I can't clap. I'm sorry. I'm trying.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna be back there. I'm gonna do your homework while I'm listening, but I'm gonna take care of the sound and video. We're gonna be recording this thing for him if he needs to use it ever in the future. So if you covered anything earlier in the class, cover it again. So anything that you want recorded, make sure you cover everything that you want to cover.
Okay, sir.
Oftentimes when I'm asked why I do it or why I spend so much time with Larry and Stacy, only half joking, I say they didn't come here because it was their mission. They were brought here by divine providence just for me. There's no other way that I could gain, as Larry mentioned, the experience, the knowledge that he has in any other fashion than to be able to work with him. And I can't ever thank him enough for the opportunity that I've had to work with him. So that is why I'm here.
Well, truth be known, if it wasn't for Ron and a few other instructors that help us out, we would have probably lost this business, because when we started, it was my brother, myself, and Stacy. We did everything. We had to set up the ranges every day. We had to get at our range while it was still dark, so that we had time to set everything up. You'll see when we set up ranges,
We'll see.
a lot of work. But now we've got lots of people to do the work. We set the ranges up, and then we did all the teaching, and we'd go until dark. When it got dark, we couldn't teach anymore, tear everything down, because we were trying to get as much training as we could within the few days that we would have. And it was 5 days, not 4. It was 5 days in a row. So it was a Monday, Tuesday through Saturday, I think is generally what we did. Well, it was killing us. It was just beating us down. And
They wouldn't even let me take targets down.
yeah, we didn't.
You
Nobody.
can't put those in the truck. They have to go in a certain way.
So finally, some of the students that we trained, like Ron, I think he was probably the first one, came to us and says, I want to help. I want to help with this mission. So at first we were a little reluctant because it was just kind of a family business. Finally, we said, all right, well, you can help us set the range up, different things. And now he does everything. In fact, he finishes my sentences for me quite often. So you'll see that, I'm sure.
I'll try not to.
But he knows the curriculum word for word. He knows it as well as I do because he's been through it so many times and participated. So thank goodness. If we didn't.
I can chime in a little more if you guys don't mind, and Mike will pick me up here. But anyways, first of all, if you want, he says you love mouse, but if you want, these two right here, you can click and you don't even have to lean over, if that helps you. If not, then just flip the mouse.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll put it right here.
The arrows are just forward and backward on
Yeah.
that.
And
Too complicated.
Yeah.
So-
If it helps. The other thing is, I'm going to brag a little bit more. So he came up to me this morning and he said something natural. What he said is this, he said, I'm not a businessman. And so I don't know how to do all this stuff. I don't know how to organize things, get the money, all that stuff. He just loves teaching. And I was hearing stories about him being in Los Angeles, training all week, all the different officers. And then on the weekend, when nobody even asked them to do it, because of his love for training, he would train civilians when everybody else would be taking a weekend break because he wanted to help people. He feels like this is his mission. And so what's interesting to me is I look at it and my business brain goes, why are you charging $675? My business brain goes through all this stuff. You should be charging a lot more. If you charge $6,000 and then discount it to 5,000 or something like that to bring in more people or whatever, but you need to be charging more. You need to have it organized. You need this, the marketing, all the stuff going through my mind. That doesn't go through his mind. What goes through his mind is, I want to help people learn how to shoot. And I'm sitting there going, oh my goodness, how do you find someone like this? They don't exist anymore,
He'll touch on it when he goes over his resume.
Yeah.
But more than that, he spent all of his comp time, vacation time for 10, 12 years training in the Central Academy, all the SWAT teams that guard the nuclear sites and
Yeah.
the
Yeah, for
US
me,
Marshals.
vacation is just another way to train more people.
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, I'm probably talking too much, but the thing about it is I'm grateful for people who have a mission. I feel like this is our mission. But I talked to you earlier that, I'm the president of this company, but he's the CEO. And that's what it is, like this is, at the end of this life, we're gonna look back and we're just gonna go, man, how much did we do to help people? Not how much money did we make, correct? And so that's
Right.
awesome. Anyways, when you're ready to do prayer, we're ready to get started.
Okay.
I'm gonna get back there. Okay?
You remember a commercial that was on TV years ago, and it went something like this. It showed a ship, a U.S. Navy ship on the ocean. It said, if you wrote a book about your life, would anyone want to read it? And I took that to heart. I think that a lot of people, I'm 77, and I'm obviously closer to the end of my life than the beginning. And I think a lot of people, when they get my age or a little bit older, they start thinking about their life and did I make a difference? So I was determined that I could write a book, which I am writing a book, by the way, that people were going to want to read. So I think that's part of the motivation, is doing things that are interesting, exciting, and beneficial to others. And people appreciate that. So we would like to open our class this morning with a prayer. Anyone, please? A volunteer?
Father in heaven, we're so grateful for the chance to be here this morning, and we're grateful for today's class and tomorrow's class, and next weekend as well. We're grateful for the skills that we're able to learn, but also the freedoms that we're able to protect. And we pray that that'll help us understand the bigger picture and to be able to understand and gain the skills that would have us gain to not only protect our families and our neighbors, our loved ones, ourselves, but also to teach others, to help others know these skills. And if we ever do need to use them to defend ourselves or defend our freedoms, to have the ability and the heart to do what's right. And we pray for the Spirit to be with each one of us individually to learn the lessons that we each individually need to learn. And please bless us collectively to be able to learn what we need to and help each other out. And we're so grateful for this morning and grateful for this chance. And pray for the Spirit to be with us. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. So if you would please stand and face the flag at the back of the room. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Please be seated. What's going on? One of the things that we put out in some of our text messages and by different sources was, today you don't need a firearm or ammunition, and we just assume you don't have it in the classroom. If we have them in the classroom, there's always a tendency, oh, well, I have a question about my gun, you know. Next thing you know, somebody's handling a firearm. So hopefully you didn't bring your firearms today. Now, if you brought one because you have a question about it, or you want me to look at it, or you want me to see if it fits your hand right, or something like that, of course, that's understandable. Everybody knows where the restrooms are around the corner here? Sure. No, beverages are not available, are they?
I'm sorry?
This is a.
No, probably not.
This is a.
The slide deck is actually for a hotel room that we often use.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What's the name of that hotel
Didn't-
we usually?
Didn't you provide beverages? There are some Costco cookies over there if you want.
Where's the cookies? we put out, did we put out cookies? No?
Yeah, they're on the table over there by the door.
Okay. Okay, so help yourself. No snack bar, no. What's the name of that hotel?
The Hyatt Region?
Hyatt something.
Place?
Hyatt Place.
It's over by Cabela's up on the foothills of
Yeah,
VI.
by Thanksgiving Point.
Traverse Ridge stuff, Traverse Mountain, whatever they call that place.
You wouldn't believe what they charge for a classroom. So we will break for lunch somewhere about noontime. Ideally, what we'd hope you would do is either you brought your lunch or you go someplace close, pick up a lunch and bring it back and eat it here. That way we can answer questions and have discussions and continue to learn things while we're eating our lunch.
Thank
So obviously, you know that this class is being recorded. We ask you not to record it. We've had some unpleasant occurrences. We had one couple that was covertly trying to take a picture of every slide. That didn't go over well when we caught them. So our real concern is if you took some of this information that we're going to give you and teach you, which we're going to follow up with hands-on and coach you and make sure you're doing everything correctly and safely. If somebody just takes these slides or takes this presentation, they're not going to get that follow-up training. And they could end up with an accident. So obviously we don't want that. Did everybody sign the sign-in sheet?
Yes.
If you have not submitted all of your tuition, my wife will be here later and she's in charge of such things. She here?
No.
Cell phones, oh, yeah, cell phones. If you wouldn't mind, you should put it on.
Vibrate or mute or something. Yeah.
Sure, can you get it? Yeah, put it on vibrate, turn it off, whatever, so that we don't interrupt the class. As before, we're going to be teaching blocks of instruction. As we complete one block, we should call for questions. If nobody has any questions, we'll go to the next block. It generally works out smoother and better if you wait until we get to that point at the end and we're about to leave a subject. Because if you just hang on, it's oftentimes your question's going to be answered anyway. Everybody follow? So if you do have questions, wait till we get to the end of that subject. Your question still didn't get answered, then please ask it. Everybody got this, right? Did everybody get this?
Just again, the facility requires that you fill out their waiver at least once per calendar year. The farm training center, which is out south of Fairfield, where are the ranges that we're going to use.
What are your expectations for this 4-day class? Everybody should have some expectations. What is it you expect to take away? What do you expect to learn? What is it that you want from us? Anybody?
My first thoughts was, since I have very little experience, I want to be more comfortable and confident with handling a firearm, knowing the safety rules, being able to practice, just gaining that confidence and knowing what I'm doing. Anyway, short story, just feeling more confident.
So what you want is you want your firearm to be an extension of your will, something that functions without consciousness. For example, if you're shooting a AR-15 or a 1911 with a manual safety, when you bring that gun up on target, the safety is always off. It goes off by itself. You fire the shots, you come down off target, and the safety's back on, and it went on by itself. You don't say, oh, now I need to put the safety back on. It just happens through repetitive training. That you want the machine to be an extension of your will where you don't have to think about everything. Then you can concern yourself with your environment, with your tactics, with your threats. But you can divorce yourself of thinking about the gun because it knows what to do. It's an extension of your will. That familiarization that you're talking about is probably more critical than you even understand yet. Very good.
And by taking advantage of this opportunity to increase your knowledge, that knowledge will displace your fear about the firearm.
Oh, knowledge replaces fear as a general rule. When people they look at something and, oh, that looks kind of scary. But they learn about it first. So I was riding motorcycles for a long time. I've owned, I don't know, 6, 7 motorcycles. I was a motorcycle instructor for Harley Davidson for 2 years. And I was a motorcycle instructor for a school in California called Ride Right. Anyway, and one day I said to Stacy, would you like to learn to ride a motorcycle? I said, would you like to ride a motorcycle? And she said, not on the back. And I said, okay, we'll go to motorcycle class. I'll take it with you as a student, just to keep an eye on you and make sure everything's safe and everything. And by the time she finished that, it was a 2.5-day school. She has since owned 2 Harley-Davidsons, toured all over the Western states. And the fear she had of riding motorcycles was completely gone because the knowledge that was acquired in the training replaced the fear. And that's generally what happens. Anyone else have expectations for this class they want to mention? Anything different?
I'd like to begin to develop muscle memory for the movements that will allow me to safely manipulate and manipulate effectively my firearm.
We take pride in our manipulation system. We spend a whole day tomorrow, all we do is manipulation. A little bit of dry practice, but mostly how to manipulate the gun, how to run the gun in a fight, how to use a gun in a tactical situation, how to clear malfunctions. And we have a very structured way of teaching this. And we're very proud of that. Failure to know how to manipulate your gun properly results in deaths on both sides of the law all the time. We've lost police officers because they didn't know how to operate their guns. By the same token, we've had countless incidents where the officer has won the fight because the bad guy didn't know how to run his gun. Jeff Cooper had something that he called the combat triad. Combat triad, it consisted of 3 points of the triangle. One was marksmanship. Can't stop him if you can't hit him.
Manipulate.
Yeah, manipulation, what was the third one? Oh, mindset.
Mindset.
Mindset. If you don't have the right mindset to use force when it's appropriate, you're lost. You've got to develop. You have to create. You have to. What's the word I usually use?
Willingness? There are a couple of different applications.
Anyway,
What makes a man dangerous is because he's willing to do it. But
yes, that's true. That's one of the old gunfighter sayings. In fact, most people who carried a gun back in the late 1800s would hesitate because there weren't killers. You know that. You have to have a mindset. But so it's manipulation, mindset, marksmanship. Manipulation, mindset, marksmanship. You need those 3 things in balance, and that's the
combat triad.
combat triad. Anyone else have an expectation that's not been mentioned?
I do. So we do have firearms in our home. So I just want to be able to, respect the firearms and know how to protect it. And then having grandchildren in our home, and our kids do have firearms. So I just want to become familiar with that. Also, the reason why I'm taking this class is once you start on the path of guns, I'm just wondering does it become a lifestyle as far as you have to do training once a month, or what does that look like? So I'm trying to figure out what lifestyle is that once you possess firearms.
Very, very good question. Typically, the average police department in the United States, their officers shoot about 50 rounds twice a year. Now, that's really not enough. But that's a standard you can look at and say, well, okay, that's what their standard is. Maybe I want to hold a little higher standard. But it doesn't, you don't have to shoot every day. You don't have to practice every day. Most of your training after this school is going to be without live ammunition anyway. So you can do it in your basement, whatever, just set up a safe place to do it. Shooting does not make you a better shooter. In fact, in general, it generally will make you a worse shooter. The more you shoot, the less accurate you will be, believe it or not, because you're going to be practicing mistakes. Learning to shoot well is done by dry practice, skip loading, diagnostic trigger control exercises with a coach that knows what he's doing, or staggered magazine drill. Those 4 things are training. Those 4 things are training. Everything else is just shooting. Shooting isn't training. And training isn't shooting. Officers would come up to me. I mentioned we had this advanced course at LAPD called the bonus course. We got shooting medals based on our score on that course, and we got bonus pay. And if you could shoot a perfect score, you got a couple other things. You got a
Challenge coin.
challenge coin, a certificate, and a $50 check, which in 1932, when they started this, was a lot of money. Anyway, this was a very challenging, difficult course, very fast course. And why did I bring it?
You would have people say, I'm shooting the
Oh,
course.
yeah. Yeah, officers who come to me all the time. I shot the course every Friday for the last 6 months, and I'm not getting better. In fact, I'm getting worse. Of course you are. You're not doing any training. All you're doing is shooting. That's not training. You train, and then you go do a little shooting and see where you're at. Shooting is the test by which you judge the effect of your training. Why? For 100 million gun owners out there, you could probably count the number of really good pistol shots on your fingers. Why? Because nobody trains. They just shoot. And then expect somehow they're going to magically get better when all they're doing is practicing bad techniques, making them solidify.
That's an often misquoted statement. Practice makes perfect. Only perfect practice makes perfect. If you're practicing mistakes, you're just making habits of those mistakes. And it's going to take a lot of discipline and effort to overcome those habits.
We would get recruits come to the academy, and I'd ask, I did a lot of recruit training, thousands and thousands, and we do 100 a month forever. That's how much turnover we had. We had 10,000 officers. And so I would ask the class of you, how many of you shot before? Oh, I shot one. My boyfriend took me out and I shot one shot. We might spend 6 months trying to undo that. Because once you start in your subconscious, getting back is a real bear. And by training someone, starting someone on firearms in an inappropriate way, pretty much ensures you're going to have a lot of work to do. So again, we like that. The less, the better. I want to talk about Stacy a little bit. She was LAPD for 11 years. She worked 77th and Newton. Newton Division was called Shooting Newton. And so those were the 2 most dangerous divisions. We had 20 divisions. And those were the 2 most dangerous divisions in the city. And she did all her time there in uniform, arresting gang members and dope dealers and all that. She was also a member of the elite uniform patrol officers M16 rifle category. We had 10,000 officers and we had 300 rifles. So only you had to be really good to get a rifle. And you had to go through a tremendous amount of extra training. And she was one of the 300 that had the rifle. Also, we had slug shotguns. We only had 300 of them for 10,000 officers. And so only 300 officers got a tactical shotgun, and she was one of them. She was one of the only officers that had both the rifle and the tac shotgun. She's a CFP. She was a Utah CFP instructor for 5 years. She's an NRA instructor, law enforcement instructor. We aren't teaching CFP right now. Our CFP certification came due at the peak of COVID. We couldn't get a class, and I'm electronically challenged. So therefore, we didn't renew ours. We will eventually get our CFP instructor ratings back. What's that?
Concealed firearms permit.
What's that?
He was just saying, mention what CFP is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The concealed firearms permit.
Concealed firearm, yeah.
Some states call it CCW, concealed carry
it's all-
weapons.
Yeah. You know, a lot of people complain that in Utah, you don't have to get a permit to carry concealed. We have constitutional carry here. That means that it's a constitutional right to keep and bear. What's bear mean? Wear, carry. It's your right to do that, so you don't have to take a test or go through training to exercise that right. And that is appropriate. Training should be stressed, emphasized, encouraged, but never required. Because when you put the government in charge of it, I think some of you might have heard me tell this before, but in California years ago, when I was there, living there, you could apply for a concealed carry permit, and the law said if you were qualified, you'd give you one. So one of my students goes in and says, here's a certificate from your chief firearms instructor saying I'm competent. I'm a jewelry courier. I've been robbed 7 times. I've been shot, and I've been stabbed. Guy looks at it all and goes, no cause, next. See, if you put the government in charge, they can make the requirement so high that no one can meet it. So we don't want the government deciding whether or not we can carry our pistols or concealed carry. We want to encourage everyone that's a firearms owner to get training. There's no substitute for it. But we don't want the government mandating these things. So Utah has a good system. It's pretty fair. If you don't have a permit, we suggest you get one. There's a number of reasons why you should have that permit, even though you don't need one just to carry concealed. For example, let's say you want to go into the elementary school and pick your kid up from school, and you're wearing your gun. Can you do that under the constitutional carry law? No. Can I do that with a 50 state law enforcement permit? No. Only one way I can do that, Utah permit. Another thing, let's say you're carrying your gun here on a constitutional carry, and now you go to another state on vacation. Are they going to recognize constitutional carry? Probably not. If they have it there, they might, but good chance they're not going to. So if you have a Utah permit, a lot of states honor the Utah permit. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why you should get it. Here's another thing. You get in a self-defense shooting. Now you're in court, and your opponent attorney is asking you about all your training and your expertise, and finds out you don't even have a permit. You're not required to have it, but if you do have it, what does it show? You went on your own to learn the subject. Where can you take a class and learn the laws of self-defense of the state of Utah? Where can you do that? How can you educate yourself about all the firearms laws that apply to you, the federal firearms laws and everything? How do you get educated about these things? The permit class.
That is really its intended purpose. Its primary purpose is to know the law.
That's it.
Some people refer to CFP as training. It's not really firearms training. It's so that you know the law and that you know that you're responsible for knowing the law. You can go and look at the Attorney General's webpage. You can go and try to read the code. It's just cumbersome. It's way more efficient to just go attend a CFP class and get at least the core of that information presented to you. And even when you have a CFP, it's recommended that you go take the class again every year or two, just to remind or refresh, because the laws change every year too.
Any questions about that? So it's not required, but we strongly suggested it. If you ever get in a shooting, it will be to your benefit. And what you learn in that class might keep you from getting into a shooting that you really shouldn't have.
It also shows you're one of the good guys. You've had a thorough background check. If you
Yeah.
get pulled over by an officer and they see you've got a CFP, in fact, it doesn't happen to me very often, but it happened to me almost a year ago while I was taking my son to the airport. And the officer, when I showed him my CFP, he's like, "Are you carrying today?" "Yes." "Thank you." He actually thanked me for carrying the gun. Because there have been instances where officers have been helped with citizens, right? If there's a bad circumstance, you ask the officer, "Can I help you? What can I do?" There have been officers saved by citizens carrying concealed weapons. And just not every officer might respond that way, but it surprised my son. "Did he just thank you for carrying your firearm?" "Yes, he did."
The Saratoga Springs sergeant told me one time, he said, if I stop a citizen for a traffic minor violation, they show me a permit, I usually won't cite them. That's just one guy, but so in other words, law enforcement generally is in favor of an armed citizenry. It works in your favor.
And this is one other small benefit of the CFP, at least in Utah. More often than not, if you're buying a gun at a retailer, they won't charge you the background check of $750 or whatever it is.
So Stacy's been teaching more than that now.
Yeah, that's the problem. You put a number in the slide and then it doesn't increment every day.
A long time. And she's picked up a lot working with me, and she's also got the advantage of being a lot more personable and a lot smarter. So and students always love it when she shows up on the range. On our critiques, they always say, "Got to get Stacy out here more. She's really good." She graduated from Gunsite, Arizona. She has 2 top 10 buckles from the World Championship Cowboy Action Shooting. If you're familiar with cowboy action shooting, it's combat shooting with cowboy guns. Instead of modern guns, you use single action revolvers, double barrel shotguns, lever action rifles. But it's, tactics and simulations. It's just another form of combat shooting. It's a lot friendlier. A lot of these matches that I've gone to over the years, they started shooting competition back in 1970. Southwest Pistol League and all the combat leagues. And you guys would put sand down your barrel if they thought they'd get away with it. Yeah. There's a lot of real serious competition. But in cowboy action shooting, you dress up like a cowboy, you shoot under a cowboy alias. How seriously can you take yourself? But it's a family sport. They've got categories all the way down to little young kids. Anyway, she's got 2 top 10 buckles from the World Championship. She's published several articles on firearms and firearms training. So when I was 19 years old, I went in the Army. Actually, I knew I wanted to go. I was anxious to go. I was looking forward to it. At that time, anybody my age was going, unless you had a deferment of some sort. I was in flight school and in junior college, city college. And if I would have filled out an application for deferment, because the Army needs pilots, so if I'm willing to spend my money to get a commercial license, then they're willing to let me alone until I get that. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so if I would have put in a deferment, I would have been deferred so that I could finish flight school, get my commercial license, and then I could go in the Army as a warrant officer. So I got all the paperwork and filled it all out and threw it in the trash. I just wanted to go. And I told my parents that I had turned in the application for deferment when my draft notice came, which was inevitable. I said, well, I guess I just didn't get the deferment, you know, and away I went. There was a couple of things. One was I felt like I owed my country something. I felt that I had a lot of advantages and freedoms that I wouldn't have in other places. I was almost born in Colombia. My parents were living there. My dad had a business there at the time, and they left Colombia and got back to the U.S. about a week before I was born. But by being born in this country, I had freedoms and privileges that I wouldn't have anywhere else. And so I felt like I owed a debt for that. There was a couple other things too. I was 19 and full of adrenaline, you know, and looking for adventure. But the main thing was I wanted to pay my country back. So I went in and I was 19. I went to Fort Polk, Louisiana for jungle guerrilla warfare training. Pretty well figure where you're going after after that. After they send you through that kind of training, you know you're going to Vietnam, where I wanted to go anyway. And I was in the 1st Cavalry Division, as you always see, CIO. I'm so proud of having been a member of the 1st Cavalry Division, best division in the Vietnam War. 1st Cavalry Division had 25 Medals of Honor. I mean, that's just unheard of. We were the original Air Mobile Division. We started helicopter assault. We trained for it, and that's what we did. I made 25 combat assaults, helicopter combat assaults, and enemy held territory many times under heavy fire. So I was there from February 67 to February 68. I went from civilian to sergeant in 14 months, and I was in charge of a rifle squad. So I had my 19th birthday in Vietnam. That was in the Battle of Tam Quan, which was, if you saw the movie, We Were Soldiers. In fact, I think I gave you that as homework in one of your
It'll be mentioned at the end of the slides.
what we do. Anyway, the movie, Mel Gibson's movie, We Were Soldiers, is about the 1st Cavalry Division at the Battle of Hai Drang, which was a really big infantry battle. They lost 72 troopers. I was in the Battle of Tam Quan. 15 months later, we lost 58 troopers. Some of the biggest battles in the war. In Tam Quan, we fought day and night for almost 2 weeks. Did you have a question? That you?
Sorry, I was just waving it. Hello.
Oh, I didn't see Celeste, so I thought it was for me. Anyway, the point of it is, I got a lot of combat experience. I have to say that the firearms training that I got from the Army before I went overseas, I thought was mediocre. And as infantry light weapons, I got about the best small arms training the military had. I was unimpressed. But I did get a lot of actual combat experience. There's a lot of people that teach firearms that don't have a lot of experience of any kind. So when I got back from Vietnam, I joined LAPD in 1969, September 1969. I was an officer for 35 years, 14 years on LA SWAT. I was a chief firearms instructor and tactics instructor for LA SWAT for all 14 years that I was on the team. Got to cross-train a lot with the SEALs, with Delta, Recon Marines, I created the first hostage rescue unit for the Marine Corps out of recon. I think I might have told you this story. Do you remember this? But what happened was the Navy had their SEALs, the Army had Delta, the Marine Corps didn't have anything. Commandant of the Marine Corps said, I got guys out on ships all over the world. They could deploy faster than anyone else. They might be right on top of something. They don't have the training. I want a SEAL team like force in the Marine Corps. So he designated this colonel to go and check all the special ops units in the world, really, and then figure out who we should get to train the Marine Corps. He went all over Europe, looked at the French GIGN, the British SAS, the Israelis, everybody. Looked at all, in this country, he looked at the SEALs, the Delta Force people, he looked at all the SWAT teams, the FBI hostage rescue team, and so on. And he went back to the commandant and he said, LAPD SWAT, their training is more like the Marine Corps training, more consistent with how we do things than any of these other organizations. So now the commandant of the Marine Corps calls the chief of police, Daryl Gates, and says, I wanted to borrow your SWAT training cadre. Well, I was in charge of the training cadre, so it was me and some of the guys that worked for me. I want to borrow you. It turned out to be 7 months. We were loaned to the Marine Corps for 7 months. So I want to borrow these guys and your guys to train a special operations unit in the out of recon Marine. So Daryl Gates said, well, that's interesting that you want some of my guys for an extended period of time. I always wanted to ride in an F-4 Phantom jet. And so Daryl Gates got to ride in a Marine Corps F-4 Phantom jet. And I spent 7 months at Camp Pendleton. But it was a good time. I really thought the world of the Marines, the recon Marines. They were awesome, awesome guys. Anyway, so I did that program. I also trained a special operations training group. So after I left them, they could continue that training. So I mentioned I was an officer 35. I worked security for 3 presidents. I have pictures. In my library, I have a picture of myself with Ronald Reagan when I was working his detail, and I have another picture with Bush Sr. when I was working his security detail. We worked their motorcades with the Secret Service, and we did fixed post security with the Secret Service. I was in chief instructor at the LA Police Academy for firearms, responsible for training 10,000 officers for 13 years. I created LAPD's handgun, rifle, shotgun, and instructor training programs. So I have 50-something years of teaching experience. I was a range master in the Marine Corps. And people say, well, I thought you were in the Army. Yeah, I was in the Army, but I was loaned to the Marines for 7 months, and they made me a range master. In fact, funny thing, one day when I first got down there, some guy comes over and says, we just built a combat range, a run and gun, combat range. We never had one down here before. And we're running our first match today. If any of the recon Marines want to shoot, come over and shoot. And I said, well, what about me? Well, yeah, you can shoot. Nicest trophy I ever won. It was awesome. I still got it in my house. It's really nice. Anyway, I love my time with the Marines. It was a good time.
Was that the same one where you were the last participant signed up, or was that a different opportunity to win a trophy? It's like, oh, we'll get you your trophy. Hold on.
Oh, that was John. Yeah. He showed up at a combat match and wearing his LAPD rig, his LAPD holster, his LAPD revolver. All these high-speed competition shooters are laughing at him. And when they saw him arrive, they signed him in. He said, well, you just made the time. We got you in. And one guy turns to the other guy and says, let me run this guy through and then I'll give you your gun, because it was a 44 Smith was the prize. So he's just going to run this policeman through this thing, and then he said, I'll give you your, because at this point, his buddy's got the top score. Well, John goes through with his police equipment and wins the whole thing. And now they got no gun because they didn't, because it was a fix. It was just going to pretend give the gun to the other guy. It was, they put this prize up so people would sign up to shoot and pay to shoot. But really, it was just, this guy is obviously going to win. He's the top dog out here. I'm just going to give him my gun and he'll give it back later. It was a scam. So now they got to give up a gun.
Yeah.
So that was kind of uncomfortable, but they did it eventually. Anyway, I've been an adjunct instructor for numerous law enforcement agencies, the Department of Energy. For 10 years, I used all my vacation time and overtime to train the SWAT teams that guard all the nuclear sites for Department of Energy. I taught for the National Tactical Officers Association. I've been a range master now, I guess, about 11 years at the Gunsight Academy in Arizona. I was a CFP instructor for 5 years. I've authored a lot of magazine articles. I've got boxes at home that are filled with magazines, either that I wrote articles that were published or somebody wrote an article about me. So you guys remember me bringing this up? Won't spend too much time on this, but through the Freedom of Information Act, you can look up almost anything about anybody, especially military stuff. So if you were so interested, you could also call Don Shipley, Bud's 131. What's his SEAL experience?
Extreme SEAL experience, I think is what it is now.
Yeah.
It used to be Bud's 131, as you just mentioned.
Yeah, and he'll look people up for you. There's LAPD has a LAPD website. It's a LAPD Medal of Valor website. Medal of Valor is like the Medal of Honor. It's the highest award for valor in LAPD. And you will find my name in 67. First one was in 67. The second one was in the event. Second event was in 83, but I think they didn't give us the medals until that year, until 85. So I think I have one in 67, one in 85. I'm the only living recipient of 2 Medals of Valor from LAPD. And Medals of Valor aside, I'm the most decorated officer in the history of LAPD. And the only reason that matters to you really is that all of those incidents, almost all of them, were either gunfights or they were shooting incidents of some sort. And so I talk about personal experience. And so I have the military credentials. I also have the law enforcement credentials. You'll find very few law enforcement officers there have been as many firearms incidents that I have. So I have both sides of that covered. So if I can, I have email address for my captain that I served under in Vietnam. We still email each other occasionally, and I'd be more than happy to give that to you. I think I might have stopped me if I told. I was at a store. It was a gun store in Saratoga Springs, and so I'm talking to the owner, and he was wanting me to use his facility, and it didn't. There was no way it wasn't going to work out. The range wasn't going to work out. The classroom wasn't going to work out. But anyway, so we were just talking, and So I told him who I was, what my background was. And he assumed, if somebody handed me my resume with their name on it, I would balk. Nobody did all this stuff, right? So he's not sure who I am. So he said, just a minute. He's got a buddy who's on LAPD, who's 50 years old, so he's been there a long time. He's just a minute, and he leaves the desk. He disappears. Comes back about 5 minutes later. He says, well, I have to tell you, what I did is I just went and I called my buddy that's an LAPD officer. And I asked him if he knew of you. And his response was, any LAPD officer that doesn't know who Larry Mudgett is would have to be an idiot. So, credibility, I guess. You can look, if you wanted to get references from me, I'd be more than happy. If you looked everything up, whatever, looked up any of this stuff just to verify it for your own knowledge, it would not be an insult to me. I would be fine with it.
Hey, Larry, can I ask personal questions on all this experience you have, if that's okay? Have you ever been shot by chance?
No, I had 7 pieces of grenade shrapnel in my head. I still got one in there. That was I was very fortunate. It's the only time I was wounded. I have to say, I mean, I've crossed battlefields hundreds of yards and hundreds of rifles. You hear the crack, supersonic crack when the bullet goes by, or you see the dirt when it flies up and hits you in the legs. I've probably been shot, I know I've been shot at hundreds of times.
With that type of experience, I mean, do you ever lose the fear, or do you, like, is it always there?
That's really kind of hard to, I can't ever remember being scared. I was very, what's the word? Just kind of logical. I just say, look, I'm going in on a combat air assault. There's 150 men here. Chances of me being killed today are probably 200 to 1 against it. And if it happens, it happens. Just kind of looking at it in a sort of methodical way, or.
So you've never been afraid of death per se, right?
No.
No.
I can't ever remember what is fear? How do we define it? What is it when we experience it? I can't ever remember saying, dang, I'm scared to death. I just never was. I'm going to do this thing. I got a job to do, and we'll see what happens.
What's interesting is, you probably have 10,000, 100,000 firearm instructors out there, and maybe a handful have had that many rounds shot at them. I mean, most of them have never even had one. And what's interesting is just that mentality of getting in where you're at, where you're not afraid anymore. If it happens, it happens, right? Same thing with preparedness. You put your trust somewhere else, right, above. But this is a harder question. If you don't want to answer it, it's okay. But as an experienced, I mean, the experiences you have, not only getting shot at, but having to shoot, is something that most instructors in the world will never, ever have that experience. You've had to kill people. Does that ever what does that do to you?
Well, most of it didn't bother me. In other words, it didn't manifest itself in some other way. I had some nightmares for a while about very specific instances. And I went through, just recently, after 50 years, I went through 14 sessions with a really good Veterans Administration psychiatrist. So that helped a lot.
And that was for post-traumatic stress disorder, right? Yeah.
Everybody, yeah, you can't hardly be there and see what you see. do the things you have to do. I just would just, it was my job. This is my job. Another thing about, back to your first question was, okay, there's a bad guy there. I could let him, he's trying to run away. This guy, there's an enemy soldier there, he's running away. What do I do? I'm gonna try to kill him. Because I know he won't be back tomorrow ambushing my buddy or me. So that was just kind of a cold way that I looked at it.
And the amount of lives you've saved, you've told a couple of the stories of having to kill some people, LAPD, you know, other places, stuff like that. But just the amount of lives you've saved on the spot and in the future, I'm sure that gives you some type of, you know, I'm doing the right thing, right?
The last two words?
That it probably gives you a little bit of, I'm glad I'm glad I'm defending the lives of others.
See, one of the things that anybody that's been in as much combat as I have, you come home and say, why me? Why me? So many others. How come I'm still here? And so what I tried to do is said, okay, it's another debt. I've incurred another debt. I got to pay that back. And I got to try to live a life to do so. But yeah, you know, I've watched these podcasts, World War II vets, guy's 100 years old. And he's sitting there saying, why me? Still. That's, what is it?
Survivor's guilt.
Survivor's guilt. That's really the biggest problem that I had. So that's one of the reasons that I feel like what we do in teaching people to be self-sufficient and protect their families in a small way is working toward that debt.
Well, I for one am profoundly
What's that?
grateful that you were able to influence me for whatever that's worth.
Okay? You betcha. Yeah, for a long time, I could hardly talk about the war at all. It took quite a few years. But the same thing, some of the, you know, police actions that I was in, officers killed. Same thing. The same, the reactions, why me? How do I work this off the ledger, you know? How do I make up for this opportunity that I was given again? Anybody have a question before we go on? We're getting to the end now of this section. So I talked about this before. I'm sure you guys remember. Yeah, this guy that the Navy has given him the SEAL database. He has access to the SEAL database and has every SEAL's record going back to UDT in the 40s. Got it all. So you call him up and say, I got a guy applying for a job in my business. He says he was a SEAL. Here's his name. No, sorry, not here. So he says he outs 20 to 50 fake SEALs every day. He says for every actual SEAL that's out there, there's 1,000 people pretending to be SEALs. And I know at LAPD, we caught officers telling all kinds of lies and exaggerations about their military experience. And I would have expected more from police officers.
probably don't need the commentary on this, but the standards have only gone down since then.
What's that?
The hiring standards have only gone down since then.
Oh, for sure. Okay. Today, we're going to cover 4 subjects beyond what we've already talked about. Firearms safety, firearms manipulation, which most of which will be deferred to tomorrow, marksmanship, mindset. The hardest one of these things for us to impart to you is mindset. In police work, I met people that would literally, quite literally, rather be tortured and murdered than have to take the life of a criminal. That's some real weird thought process there, but I have come across people like this. But the fact of the matter is, one of the things you have to do to prepare yourself is you have to be mentally prepared, not just physically. You have got to have made the decision. Under these circumstances, I will use deadly force to protect my family. If you don't have that, let's say you're sitting at home tonight watching TV and you hear a boom. That was the sound of your front door being kicked open. And a group of armed home invasion robbers comes pouring through the door. How much time do you think you have? You don't have time to figure this stuff out. In 3 seconds, one of the following conditions will exist. You will be a prisoner. You will be dead or dying. Or you will be victorious. 3 seconds. You can't start debating with yourself, gee, can I really do this? Can I really press this trigger? That's all got to be worked out way before that. So mindset, and we will specifically talk and lecture about mindset and how we prepare ourselves mentally. So let's talk a little bit about firearm safety. We're going to show you some pictures. You don't have to look, but pictures of people who made mistakes with their firearms. We'll go over the 4 universal safety rules. We'll talk a little bit about how attitude reflects your safety, how to conduct a chamber check or condition check on your weapon, and then some things that relate to safety, misfires, squib loads, and other malfunctions which can create unsafe conditions. So we'll just jump right in, both feet. The next several slides are all graphic examples of why we have a 0 tolerance for safety violations. If you are offended, do not watch. However, if you cannot watch, what makes you think that you could use deadly force? You can't look at a picture of somebody who accidentally shot himself, but you can drop the hammer on somebody and take their life, really? Maybe. Now, all the people in these photographs, they were all considered to be well-trained, but they were not. This right here is an entry hole of a 9mm hollow point, and there's the exit hole in the back of the hand. Look at the difference in the size of the wound on the exit hole. Because that bullet's expanding, becoming larger as it goes through. You don't want to be this guy, do you? So now here this is later on in his treatment. Kind of put him back together. Here, still stitched up. A lot of small bones in your hand. Now that looks like it's going to hurt a lot. Once again, you don't want to be this guy, do you? No, you'd rather let this one pass by and not occur, right? This was actually a rifle. Did a lot of damage. This is a bullet going up in the upper leg, down through the leg and exiting. Pretty common. So this is your exit wound entrance. See, that hollow point was small when it went in, but it expanded, created this very large wound cavity. Entrance. And somewhere here's an exit.
Down,
Right there?
down more.
More?
Yeah, there you
There.
go.
Now, you notice there's a lot of leg shots? How does that happen? Drawing and holster. If you look at police officers, accidental discharges or negligent discharges, all the police in the United States for a given 5-year period, whatever you want to look at, what were they doing when they got shot? Drawing or holstering? One of the most dangerous things you're going to do on the range is get that gun in and out of the holster without shooting yourself. What do you think?
Yeah, normally you would highlight the fact that last slide, the entrance wound at the top of the thigh, exit down by the knee. Why did that not look like the other ones? Go back one slide. This is not a hollow point round.
Oh yeah, this is ball. This is full metal jacket practice ammo here. So
These guys are going to be surprised.
Yeah. Which is why we don't use that for generally for self-defense, because it makes small holes. What are the mechanisms? That?
That's just the door chime.
Okay. Oh, I see. So what are the mechanisms that make somebody stop attacking you when you shoot them? What are the physical mechanisms?
Lack of blood flow?
Reduce the blood pressure to the brain. In other words, we put holes in the organs, they're bleeding out, blood pressure drops, they lose consciousness. They're not conscious, they can't kill you. Sometimes they'll hit the ground, they'll be laying there for a few seconds, and their blood pressure will go up again, and they'll become a
Conscious
threat
again.
again. But loss of blood pressure is one of the primary ways that we incapacitate people. So a hollow point makes a bigger hole, therefore it's going to let out more blood faster, and we're going to create that low blood pressure quicker. The reason we use hollow points is, one, to incapacitate quicker. Number two, to reduce overpenetration. We don't want to shoot some guy in self-defense and kill the innocent citizen a half a block away. So by expanding, the bullet's dumping its energy, it's decelerating, and it's less likely to hit somebody downrange after going through the primary target. Make sense? Another reason that hollow points are better, they don't ricochet as bad. So you get into shooting and you hit the street, that ball round's just going to ricochet and go. But that hollow point's going to break up. It's going to be deformed, and it's not going to travel as far. It's going to decelerate much more quickly. Not a good slide. Okay, so with some pictures of people who thought they knew what they were doing and didn't, in the back of our minds, let's go through the 4 universal safety rules. And I assume you've all memorized them word for word, yes? We're very clear about this. People, when we sit there and say, here's a check, try again another time. They can't believe it. No, we're dead serious. If you cannot recite these rules word for word, 4 sentences, then they got 1 or 2 problems. Either one, you have a learning disability, or number 2, you're not taking this serious. You must memorize 4 sentences word for word, And we will unhappily send you home if you can't do it. Don't put me in that spot. I don't want to be there. Just learn the 4 sentences.
It's definitely not a good plan to just think I'm gonna do this the night before. Spend some
Yeah.
time. Invest the time to memorize the rules.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll memorize it the night before. That's not a good plan. Because you're going to feel stress, because you're going to stand up in front of the class and you're going to recite the rule with conviction. Convince me you believe it. And you have to really know it. So
You
You
should
should-
believe it. It should become part of your character, not just something you
right.
say.
these are not range rules. This should be part of you. Rule 1, who wants to take rule 1? I'll get to my,
All guns are always loaded.
very good. All guns are always loaded. What does that mean? We're going to extrapolate on these a little bit. Well, if I take my pistol, take out the magazine, clear the firing chamber, inspect the weapon, and I see that it's completely unloaded, what does this rule mean? All guns are always loaded. What's that?
Yes.
Yes,
Treat it as,
you treat it whether it's loaded the same way, whether you think it's loaded or it's not. And we see a lot of problems with that. People saying, hey, watch out, you covered me with your muzzle. Oh, it's okay, it's unloaded. I can't tell you how many times we checked the gun and it was loaded. In fact, I was at one where I was at an outdoor range, and guys stand at the window with a 45, shuts it down. The manager says, hey, what are you doing? You covered me with your pistol. It's unloaded. I don't care if it's unloaded or not. You don't let it point at me. So the guy gets real irate and he says, I'm an NRA firearms instructor, and he starts rapping off what an expert he is. And this gun is unloaded, picks it up and pulls the trigger, fires a shot right between the manager and his wife. I would have beat him till the cows come home. In fact, I know I've seen a lot of cases where somebody's unsafe with a gun, and the victim of that unsafe action has become violent. Don't be surprised. I was at a match, guy turned around after you shoot, you holster, turned around, covered everybody, and then holstered. Guy next to him just, pow, knocked him out cold. And everybody in the crowd applauded. Yeah. Yeah, there are people who are not going to let you endanger their life. They're just not going to. I've told this one here one time before. I was at an outdoor range, and I hear the guy on the speaker say, hey, watch where you're pointing that rifle. And I turn around and I see the guy, and his rifle's kind of moving away from me, but I didn't see him point it right at me. So I went over to the guy on the speaker and I said, where was he pointing the gun? He said, he was pointing it at you and your son. Fine. I walk up behind the guy, I tapped him on the shoulder, he turns around, I said, if you cover me again, I swear I'll kill you right where you stand. He says, oh, it wasn't loaded. I said, when you're dead, you won't care. Packed his stuff and left. Smart to do that. People are not going to stand around and let you put their life in jeopardy. Somebody's going to knock you out or something. Don't be that guy. All guns are always loaded. Treat the gun with the respect that it's due, whether you think it's loaded or not. There's 2 reasons. 1, we're human, we could be mistaken. And 2, anybody know? Habit. If you treat the gun in an unsafe manner because you believe it to be unloaded, that will become a habit. And sooner or later, you'll do it when it is loaded. Even when we work with a rubber gun, it's not even a gun, it's just shaped like a gun, it's just a piece of rubber. I can hardly bring myself to point it at a student in a scenario or something. It's just like fingernails on a chalkboard. It's such an
Alarms go off inside.
Yeah.
It's just uncomfortable, and it should be that way. Anytime you violate one of the 4 safety rules, it should just bells going off in your head.
So don't ever say, when somebody says, hey, you covered me, don't say, oh, it's not loaded. Somebody's gonna be down your throat. Doesn't matter. The guy who's getting the gun pointed at doesn't know if it's loaded. Don't be that guy. There was something else I was gonna say about gun.
Was it Cooper or Chapman who said when somebody covered you with a gun?
Yeah. First time I went to gun sight, 1980, went as a student. And trying to remember the guy's name. He was pretty well
Ray
known.
Chapman or?
Right, no. Shoot, anyway, I forget the guy's name now. I should know it. I think he's passed away, but everybody I know has passed away. Anyway, he gets up behind the lectern on Monday morning, first class, first hour, steps up behind the lectern and says, gentlemen, because there were no ladies in that class, and he says, while you're here at gun sight, if you cover me with your muzzle, I'm going to assume that you intend to kill me and take the appropriate action. Whoa. People are dead serious about this. So, how do we avoid all these problems? All guns are always loaded. Treat it as such. First thing. Rule 2.
Never allow the muzzle to cover anything you are not willing to destroy.
Very good. Never allow the muzzle to cover anything you're not willing to destroy. See, here's the deal. People will say, don't point your gun. Don't point your gun at something you know. No, that doesn't cut it. Because point your gun will be often interpreted as an intentional act. I'm pointing my gun at that post, right? No, that's not where people are getting killed. It's inadvertent sweeping. It's not where somebody intentionally pointed a gun at you. It's they were unintentionally covering you with it. If the gun fires, you're just as dead. Whether he's intentionally pointing it or just sweeping you when it goes off, doesn't matter. Dead is dead. So, I didn't get this rule 2 up here, did I?
Slide back on them.
Never allow the muzzle to cover anything you're not willing to destroy. And if you students will sometimes get up and start to recite the rules and they'll say, don't point your gun. Oh, that's wrong.
Who originated these 4 rules?
Jeff Cooper.
Any instructor with any credentials at all is going to have at least some version of these 4 rules. But these particular sentences that Larry has put a lot of thought and effort into to essentially eliminate the possibility of misinterpreting the rules. So these are the sentences that Larry insists that we memorize verbatim.
Jeff Cooper is the father of modern weaponcraft. When Jeff came along and started making changes, everyone shot with only one hand. Nobody shot with 2 hands. Everybody carried revolvers. If you carried a gun for self-defense, it was a revolver. Almost no one carried auto pistols. There's so many things that we just take for granted. Now, where did that change come from? How did it occur? Jeff changed it. And as you go through other classes here, as we give you other lectures, we'll talk about some of these things. If you holster your gun by pointing it at your kidneys, that's a violation of Rule 2. Never allow the muzzle to cover anything you're not willing to destroy. So you don't bring your left hand back and then hold the holster open with your left hand and cross it with the gun. because that's a violation. When anytime you point that muzzle of the gun at yourself, you have violated Rule 2. It just doesn't just apply to other people that you might sweep. Who's got Rule 3 for me?
Just out of curiosity on that last rule, I know a lot of people will conceal carry right here, and they're sitting down, and it's covering. I mean, what's your thoughts on concealed carry? Would you do it always in the back?
Sure, I'll be happy to talk to you about that. Talk to the class about that. If the gun's in the holster and it's a proper holster and the trigger guard is enclosed, and you're not handling it, you're not doing anything with it. But let's say it points at your hip, or points at your buttocks, or points at your side. Is that a violation? This is arguable. You'll find very knowledgeable people on both sides of this. Personally, I'm not comfortable carrying a gun, even in a good holster, where it points at parts of my anatomy. Some people are quite comfortable with it. There is no hard, fast rule that I know of. It's not like the ultimate source of information says this is what's right and this isn't. It's just a matter of different schools, different instructors, different students will treat this subject differently. For example, let's say you're going to go down range. So you take your gun, it's in a holster, the trigger guard's covered, and you set it down on the table and nobody's touching it, and you go down range, but you're walking right in front of the gun. Is that a violation? That's arguable. Especially nobody's touching it. If somebody's handling it, oh yeah, you got a problem. Nobody's touching the gun, but you are in front of the muzzle. There's no ultimate source that says this is one way or another. I generally say, as a rule, I try not to have my holster guns pointing at parts of my body. Why would that be? If you get rattled enough, you get surprised enough, you push yourself beyond your speed limit, make a mistake, and pull that trigger, pulling that gun out of the holster. It should never happen, but if it does, it'd be nice if it didn't hit anything. Right? So the thing about the
Appendix.
appendix carry, personally, I have no problem with it. You only need one testicle. And I've seen pictures of people, guys shot in their men parts. You don't want to be that guy. So
It usually bleeds quite a lot.
it's bad, man. You have to look away, you know. Let's just avoid that stuff. I don't like appendix carry, but it's fast. The reason everybody likes it is because it just slick fast. It's probably 1 or 2/10 of a second faster than the next fastest position. So now am I willing to trade 1 or 2/10 of a second for reducing the chance of shooting myself in a panic draw? There's no source to tell us. It's kind of up to us. I don't want my gun pointed at me. By the way, small of the back holsters, I wouldn't give you a nickel for one. We can generally carry it about 4 o'clock on the strong side. Yep. I've carried a lot in cross draw. Some
Chest.
shoulder holsters are good. Chest holsters are popular for woods guns. They can work out depending on how they're designed. But the small of the back, remember the last church shooting in Texas where the church security guy nailed the suspect with a .327 SIG about 50 feet?
It's White Settlement, I believe. White Settlement Church.
Yeah, White Settlement, yeah. Anyway, in that shooting, they had several armed members of the church present. This guy comes up with a gun, with a shotgun out from under his coat, And one of the guys goes for his small of the back holster and he gets all hung up. Gets it hung up in his coat, whatever. And he's fussing with it for several seconds until the guy shoots him and kills him. Yeah. Then we had the FBI agent who was at a disco dancing with his pistol in the small of the back holster. And it comes flying out. It hits the floor. Now, what do? Here's the problem. We tell you, when on our range, if you drop your gun, you are not picking it up because you are going to be in an emotional state of panic. You're going to step away. We who are calm and not involved are going to pick it up. Because you know what people will do? Pick it up by the trigger. And so that's just what that FBI guy did. Oh, I got to hide this, man. I don't want people seeing my gun on the floor. Grabbed it by the trigger, fired it, and hit a guy in the leg. And he ended up getting fired, all sued and everything else. What other stories do we have about small of the back holster?
The other thing about dropping a gun, if you drop a gun, don't try to catch it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I've had several experiences. I was in foot pursuit of a burglar. And I was carrying, at the time I used clamshell holsters. Do you know what that is? The holster's got a hinge at the back like this, and then it closes down and locks. But when you touch a certain spot inside the trigger guard, it flies open, spring. It's got a powerful spring, it just flies open. So it was like you always had your gun out. You want your gun out? It's out. It was so fast, it was ridiculous. Anyway, but it was aluminum frame covered with leather, and it hung down, kind of a low hanging. I bailed out of the car, and the butt of the revolver caught between the doorpost and the seat, and it just bent that aluminum holster right open. So I'm running after this guy, and I see my gun twirling in the air in front of me. I didn't want my gun to be damaged, I was going to try to catch it. No, wrong answer. I caught it, fired it. When I got done with the paperwork, they almost gave me a commendation for being so thoughtful, trying to prevent an accident. But anyway, yeah, the next time I dropped the gun, it's a long story. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but it was in 1911. And I was trying to prove something about how the safety was working to this Marine. And I was holding it in a very improper way, fired it, and it spun like this. And I'm watching the muzzle go by my face. And this time I just let it go. Yeah, if you try to catch it, you're just liable to catch it by the trigger. And God only knows what you're going to shoot. So do we do rule 3?
Not yet.
Let's do it. Who's got rule 3 for me? Sir.
The first person to volunteer has a mic.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see. Go ahead. You're up.
Keep your finger off the trigger until the sights are on target and you intend to shoot.
Until your sights,
Almost.
right?
Keep your finger off the trigger until your sights are on the target and you intend to shoot.
Your
You
sights.
said the sights.
A lot of times, some of the words that we will strip you for don't seem to matter. But here's the point. When you can say these rules word for word on demand, you have not just a what's the word I always use?
Familiarization.
Huh?
Familiarization.
Yeah, just a vague familiarization.
Casual.
You know them deep into your subconscious. When you can do them word for word, that means you've studied them and read them couple hundred times. They are deep. They are a deep part of your subconscious now, not just a casual familiarization. Okay, so that's why we want every word. So just the one word. Your sights, right? What did you say?
Yeah.
What did he say?
He said the sights
The sights, yeah.
as opposed to your sights.
Yeah, it's your sights. Okay. Okay. Next, Who's got let's talk a little more about rule 3. People think, for example, let's say you're confronting an intruder. He just came through that door in your home. You've got your gun and you're telling him, stop, put your hands up, whatever commands you decide to give him. Where's your gun? Where's your gun? You're giving commands to a guy just busted into your house.
Should be in the
Where's your
guard
gun?
position. Say guard position.
Okay. Never allow the muzzle to cover anything you're not willing to do. Have you made a decision to shoot him?
No.
Let's assume we have not. Then we don't put our sights up here on his chest. But people do, because they don't know any better. First, when you put your sights on his chest, guess what you can't see? His waistband or his hands. The things that are going to tell you whether or not he needs to be shot, you just block them out. So, never allow the muzzle to cover anything you're not willing to destroy. If I am not willing to shoot that guy, I'm down here. I'm not here, I'm here. Between his feet, maybe even between his knees. If you need to shoot, it's just a few degrees. So fingers off the trigger, sights are aligned with your eye and each other, pop.
Yeah, once you make the decision to shoot, you just raise the sights up to your eye, finger goes on the trigger. But your finger's not on the trigger until you've made the decision to shoot.
Until you've made the decision to shoot, your finger's off the trigger. That's another thing. People say, well, of course I had my finger on the trigger when I accidentally shot this guy because I was in a stressful situation. There's no excuse for it. In fact, so you shoot somebody by accident. Well, I'm your opposition in court. Did you have your finger on the trigger? Yes. Did you have your gun aimed at my client? Yes. I'm just going to pick this up and read it to the jury.
These 4 universal safety rules, right?
Universal safety rules. Both of those things were a violation that undoubtedly caused that, and now you're going to be liable for it. Follow? But there's no tactical reason for it. We don't need to be giving guys commands or tell them to put their hands up for something on target, because if we have to shoot, we only got to move our finger that far. And so if we're in a guard, we're going to have to move how far are we going to have to move the gun? Which one do we have to move farther? We only have to move our finger half an inch. We have to move the gun several feet. In other words, if you decide to shoot, your finger will always be on the trigger before you can get there. You understand? And I had one of my academy mates got in a shooting, accidentally shot and killed the birder that he didn't mean to shoot. And they owned him. Here's the rule. Were you not taught these rules? Yes. Were you in violation of these rules? And is that not what resulted in my client being shot? Yes. You got no defense? Because these rules are universal. That's why we call them the universal safety rules. And there's no need for it. When you learn to stand in the guard, finger off the trigger, and then the decision to shoot is made, before you can get your sights on target, your finger will be already pulling that trigger. Your finger's only got to move that far, you're undoubtedly going to have to move the gun farther. By the time you get the sights on target, you will have that trigger on back. But this is all stuff you learn through experience on the range. And you'll find out that there's nothing that you need to do in violation of these rules. It's going to make you better off in a confrontation. These rules still apply always. Okay, rule 4.
Know your target.
Almost.
Be sure of your target.
That's 3. Wait a second.
You wait for the mic and it wasn't even turned on. Yes, be sure of your target is the sentence.
Found it. Be sure of your target. So what does that mean? Well, you should know what's behind your target, what's beside your target that could quickly move in front of your gun. You should be tactically aware of your shooting area. Be sure of your target. And the obvious. Don't, mistake of fact shootings don't go over well. Why'd you shoot the guy? I thought he had a weapon. That kind of nonsense. Be sure of your target. Don't shoot something you haven't identified. Know what you're shooting. Don't shoot in the dark. Okay, I see a shadow of a person. There's an intruder in my house. I see a shadow of a person.
Or an outline,
Yeah.
the silhouette of a person.
And he does not, nobody should be, this person obviously broke into my house. And it turns out you shoot him and it's your brother-in-law who's drunk and his wife just told him to go sleep at your house. There's been so many incidents where someone has shot a family member because they didn't identify the target. In fact, in my mind, when you can't identify the target, when you can't take the time to identify the target, when you can't make sure that you need to shoot that target, that's because of cowardice on the part of the shooter. I've seen troopers killed by other troopers because they were too cowardly to identify the threat. They wouldn't wait and make sure it was a bad guy. There's no excuse for it. You don't shoot what you don't know. Make sure you know what you're shooting. Make sure you're not shooting an innocent person. Myself and two other troopers were walking from one company area to another at night on K, big base, a couple thousand people on this base. And we're walking along and I thought I heard someone whisper, "Halt." And I stopped. I said, "You guys hear that?" "Hear what?" It almost sounded like I heard someone whisper, "Halt." No, I didn't hear anything. So we stand there for a few minutes, nothing. We start to walk again. Pow! This, I don't know what words I'd like to describe this person. But it turns out he's just got to country, doesn't know anything, scared to death, on guard by himself. He sees some people coming through. He knows he's supposed to challenge them, but he's afraid, well, if I say halt, they might turn around and start shooting me if they're back. Just whisper halt, that way I've complied with the law, and then I can just murder these people. It's cowardice. Reason people shoot prematurely and don't take the extra second to identify is they're afraid. Identify the target. Don't shoot what you don't know. Be sure of your target. I was in that hostage rescue shooting. What this guy did was he took the two nurses, put these surgical hats, surgical face masks, and surgical gowns to make them all look the same and make it hard to identify which one was him. Then he tied one of them to each side of him, so they were all three tied together. And they came out, got in the car that way. And that was really tough. And then one of these three guys, and I heard the guy say, "I've got him, I'm going to kill them both," referring to the two hostages. So I tried to figure out one from another, and I saw a big red mustache sticking out from the surgical gown. And I even asked my partner, I said, is it the guy in the middle? And he says, yeah. He also confirmed it was the person in the middle of the three people, and the guy in the middle. and we shot him in the head, or 45s and killed him. But that was tough. Because they had purposely got disguised everybody to look the same. But we still what? We don't get to make a mistake. What if we would have shot one of those nurses in the head? Our lives would be,
Different, to say the least.
huh?
Your life will be different, to say the
Yeah.
least.
Yeah. But we still took the time. And I'm standing right there 3 feet from the guy with a gun in his hand. I'm asking my partner, can you confirm? I'm gonna make sure we shoot the right guy. Every round you fire, you own it forever. You can't call it back. Okay, we're good. Any questions about the 4 universal safety rules? We'll work on these again. This is something we'll be talking about all throughout class. They always apply, no matter what the scenario. I don't care if you're a SWAT team member making a dynamic entry, it doesn't matter, it's all the same. You still have to identify your target. You still have to adhere to those 4 rules. Now we're going to talk about causes of accidents very briefly. Guns are serious tools. They are meant to do damage. Gun is designed to do damage. It doesn't have a brain. The bullet, the gun don't have a brain. You have to lend yours. The most common cause of firearms accidents is unnecessary gun handling. When do we necessarily handle our gun? When we get up in the morning, take it out of the locked box, put it in our holster. Right? We handle it. During maintenance, we unload it, we take it apart, we clean it, lube it during maintenance. When we're on the range training, we handle our gun. Most other gun handling occurrences are unwarranted. In other words, fooling around with your gun, handling it when you don't need to, taking it out when you don't need to, showing it to someone you don't need to. These are the kinds of casual occurrences that often result in accidents. When you train, when you defend your life, you handle your gun. Maintenance. We are aware of dozens of accidents which occurred during childish show and tell with family. Oh, you got a bunch of people over for dinner. Somebody breaks out the gun. Hey, did you see my new Glock? I said, if you want to see a new Glock, go buy one. Start passing guns around. I was at it was a party, I can't remember, it was a dinner party. I think it was a dinner party. It was put on by a gun store in the area. And I just happened to be invited. I guess I was doing some teaching for the store at the time. Anyhow, I'm just standing there minding my own business. I see this woman has got a revolver in her hand, talking and showing it to people out of her purse, and she's waving it around. She covers me with it. I walked over and did a front gun takeaway. Turned around and walked away with a gun. She just sat there like, I found her, I located her husband, and I said, I'm not going to look down this barrel again today. So you lock this in the car, I'll give it to you. So he said he would. I gave him the gun, he locked it up. Well, I was not the most popular person at the party. I did not give a damn. I'm not going to let somebody endanger my life. But this, she was showing somebody her gun. Inappropriate place to be doing that. These are the kinds of things that lead to a lot of accidents. Unnecessary gun handling. Don't handle it if you don't need to. This is going to be really brief. Sometimes people will memorize the safety rules, but they don't really take it to heart. They're doing it because they're required to do it. In fact, I remember I got into an argument on, I don't know, Facebook or something, some social media. And what happened, this guy got kicked out of a shooting match because he was unsafe, which was quite justifiable. So he's complaining, saying how all of us are going to get killed because we're more worried about safety than we are about fighting. That was his position. So he says, he called us safety Sallies. So I wrote back, I said, I didn't use myself, that would be cheap, but I used my partner, John. John Helms, we worked the same car and SWAT for 8 years, partners for 8 years. John's a 7th degree black belt in some Okinawan style karate. And I think he's a 3rd degree in jiu-jitsu. And he's been in a lot of gunfights. And he's a safety, dare I say it, he's a safety Sally. He will not tolerate unsafe people around him. You wouldn't want to accidentally cover him with your muzzle. You're able to wake up, sorry. So I used John as an example in this argument. I said, well, my partner, who's very much a safety Sally, will not tolerate people being unsafe. He's won 12 gunfights. He's a 7th degree black belt in karate, and I think it was the 3rd degree, 2nd or 3rd degree in jiu-jitsu. Anyway, I said, so if that's what you mean by safety Sally, I'll take that. I said, I wonder how you ever won all those gunfights with all of the safety stuff getting in the way. Anyhow, these things are not independent or separable. Being safe is part of being a good gunfighter. You know, like not shooting guys on your team by accident. That's part of being a good gunfighter.
Yeah, if you're going to shoot yourself or your team members, why do you need a bad guy?
Yeah. So you've got to believe in these rules, and you've got to. What happened?
Just hit it. Don't click on that. Either somewhere else or just hit escape.
So you memorize the rules, but you got to practice them. Are you ever going to break those rules? I don't care how hard you try. I don't care how perfectly you do things. You're going to make a mistake, someplace or another. It's like riding motorcycles or flying airplanes. We make mistakes, but when we get killed is when we make multiple mistakes. When you start stacking mistakes on top of others, that's when people die. Whether it's motorcycles, guns, or airplanes, that's the way it works. We're all going to make a mistake. Try as hard as we can not to. If we do make a mistake, if we cover something we shouldn't, or if we have our finger at the trigger at the wrong time, be aware of it, own it up to it, think about it, and then do your best to not repeat it. We're not perfect. That's why we have multiple safety rules. We'll get away with one. Not likely to get away with 3 or 4.
Like Larry just said, and as I mentioned earlier, these rules should be part of your character. And if you do make a mistake, it should be alarms going off. It should make you uncomfortable, right? Don't say, oh yeah, I can make one rule violation. That's okay. No. Anytime it happens, you should feel uncomfortable and strive for perfection. Don't, just because it usually requires violating more than one rule to have that accidental discharge negligently injure someone. Don't say, oh, I've got that margin of error, I can live with it. No. Does that make sense?
Okay, we have what we call a chamber check and a condition check. It might be helpful if you could always know whether your gun's loaded or not. So what you wouldn't want to do is face off against a criminal with a gun that you thought was loaded and wasn't. Or we want to do dry practice in the basement, but the gun was loaded. That's a problem, right? So we need to be able to check quickly, safely, and efficiently and determine what condition our firearm is in. We check the chamber, we check the magazine. A condition check means we check the magazine and the firing chamber. A chamber check, we just check the firing chamber. A lot of times that's all you need to know at the moment is whether or not the chamber is loaded. Sometimes that's all you need. So you just check the firing chamber. But if other times you need to know not only if the chamber is loaded, but if the magazine's loaded, and you'll do both. In which case you'll pop out the mag, check it, put it back in, and then do your chamber check. Tomorrow you will do hundreds of chamber checks. I'm not going to belabor the point right now. We'll show you exactly how to do it. There's lots of different ways. Different guns lend themselves to different ways of chamber checking. The Beretta M9, for example, put the decocker down, put your thumb on the tang, 2 fingers over the decockers, pinch it back like this, works really slick. Every gun has its own way. We're mostly shooting striker fired guns, and they're a little harder to chamber check, but we will teach you how to do that tomorrow. So what is a condition check? Determining the condition, meaning both chamber and magazine. What is a chamber check? A check to determine the condition of the firing chamber only. Good?
Yeah. Yeah. Visual or physical, yeah.
When do you check? When do we do this? When do we check the condition of our firearm?
Anytime you are at first in possession of it, unless instructed at the firing line by instructors.
Close.
Leave off the last part.
It was
Okay.
close.
So when do we check the firearm? Every time we acquire physical control of it. You pick it up, you check it, you do whatever you're going to do, you set it down, pick it up, oh, I'm going to pick it up again, I'm going to check it again. I put it in the holster, I take it out, I check it, put it back. Every time we acquire control of it, we check it. All firearms. Maybe just a chamber check, or maybe both. But you will check it every time you acquire control. Except when do you not? When do you acquire control and not check it? What? Gunfight.
In combat or simulated combat, which is kind of what you were saying. If you're doing a simulated combat exercise on the range, then you would not check the chamber usually. But you would check the gun when you get up, check it when you put it on, and go about your business, right? So you know, yes, it's loaded, put it in your holster. So if you're confronted later in the day with a combat situation, you're not required to present the gun, check it, and then proceed, right? Go ahead.
And also if you're ever going to hand it over to somebody, you check it, make sure the thing is open before you hand it over, make sure it's empty, unloaded, and open.
You don't necessarily have to lock the action open to hand the gun to somebody else, although that's one way to do it. But you do need to check it so you know that you're handing them an unloaded gun. So you pop out the mag, you check it, do a chamber check, check. Okay, the gun's empty. Still going to be careful with it. Still not gonna cover anybody. We can hand it off like that. But
So
it
what
is-
do you do when you receive the gun?
Yep,
You take the person's word? No,
somebody hands you a gun, you check it.
because who's responsible? Larry has experience.
I've had several experiences where somebody handed me a gun and said, here, it's unloaded. And it wasn't. In one case, it was a MP5 submachine gun. And the chamber sets kind of deep in the upper receiver. And it's a little hard to see in there. And it was on an indoor range, so the light wasn't very good. And so he said, here, it's unloaded. The bolt was locked open. And I had to really get up there and look around and said, huh, there's a cartridge stuck in the firing chamber. If I would have dropped the bolt and pulled the trigger, guess what? It would have fired. Whose fault would it be? 100%. It's always the pilot's fault. Pilot error. See, you're the one that's got control of the gun, you own it. You're the one who pulls the trigger, you own it. Oh yeah, but he told me it was unloaded. Doesn't matter, you're supposed to check it, right? No, it's on you.
Yeah, when you acquire control, you check it. You're responsible.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So when you're passing the gun to somebody else, like when you're passing the gun to somebody else, where's that gun pointing, or how do you even pass it? What does that look like?
In the safest direction.
In what?
In the safest direction.
The
So
muzzle-
the gun's unloaded, you've inspected it, and you're gonna, depends on circumstances. I could say, well, elevate the muzzle and let it point up, except you're in the bottom floor of a 10-story hospital. Every circumstance will be different. You have to figure out what's the safest direction.
You might as well introduce the clause now.
Hmm?
How do you make the decision? In many cases, you might as well introduce the clause now, the statement now. It's due to the totality of the
Oh.
circumstances known to you. You determine which is the safest direction to have the muzzle as you pass the firearm to someone else.
You take into consideration, is there another floor up there, a bunch of hospital beds, or is there something, what about, is there below us? Is that a block wall, or is that another room in the house? You're just gonna have to ascertain, based on what you do know about your circumstance, where you are, what's gonna be the safest direction. That's a good question, though. Very good question. So here's the deal. Except in combat or simulated combat. So you, somebody kicks down your front door, you draw your pistol, he's coming at you with a weapon. You're not going to stop and chamber check your gun. You did that before you put it in the holster that day. Now, if you're in a tactical situation, a tactical environment, and based on all the circumstances, you have an opportunity to do a chamber check and you want to do it, nothing says you can't do it. We have one video of an officer, he gets a call to a market, and it seems that this guy is crazy and he's trying to take a woman's baby out of the cart and steal it. And so he looks, kind of sees what he's got, steps around the aisle so he can't be seen, takes out his gun, chamber checks it, steps back around, shoots the guy in the head. That's very unusual. So if the circumstances allow it and you want to do it, nobody says you can't do it, but it's not required. Otherwise, it's required. Every time you acquire physical control of the gun, you have to check it, except in combat or simulated combat. What's simulated combat? Okay, when I blow the whistle, you're going to shoot these 5 targets that are trying to kill you. Ready, go. You know, that kind of thing. You're not going to draw and check your gun any more than you would in the street. Make sense? But otherwise, every time you acquire control, check it. This is a low light feedway check. Now, most schools teach this as a chamber check. This is not a chamber check. Imagine that the extractor is broken and it doesn't pull the cartridge out into the feedway. You pinch the slide back and you put your finger in there, what are you going to feel? Nada. Nothing's going to be there because the extractor is not going to pull that, or even a worn extractor, and it leaves the cartridge in the firing chamber. So you put your finger in the feedway and say, gun's unloaded. Drop the slide, press the trigger, boom! How'd that happen? Are you following this? So this is not a chamber check. In a chamber check, you either see or put your finger into the firing chamber. Unless you put your finger into the chamber or visually look clearly into the firing chamber and see that the chamber is empty. It's not a chamber check, it's a feedway check. Most schools teach this, and that's all they teach. They don't even teach a true chamber check at all. They do a feedway check and call it a chamber check, and this is not insurance. This is not positive. It's very possible you can be mistaken on this one if the gun doesn't function correctly.
They rationalize that statement by saying, if your chamber check doesn't work in the dark, then it's not a good chamber check. But as Larry already explained, if the extractor hook slips off the cartridge and doesn't pull it into the feedway, you can misinterpret the information. So if it is dark, you've got to put your finger in the chamber.
That's right.
To confirm whether it's loaded or empty. We'll demonstrate or look at this on the range with an actual firearm.
Any questions about anything we've covered so far? What time is it? Yeah, we're doing okay. Do me a favor. Call Stacy, make sure everything's okay.
Yeah, she just sent me a text. They're on their way.
Okay, good. Good. Taking a long time to get the kid dressed. The proper mindset required for self-defense must be cultivated, which was the word I was trying to think of this morning. Cultivated. You must cultivate a proper mindset. How do you do that? Well, I'll tell you one way you don't do it. I know one of our instructors, he's not allowed to watch a movie that's not G-rated. You know where I'm going here? In other words, if we seal ourselves off from all the bad stuff to the point where we're so startled we can't react when it happens for real. You know what I'm saying? In other words, this business of I'm going to live in this bubble. I live in Utah. The crime's low. And so I don't have to think about this kind of stuff. Well, sometimes, okay, do you remember I just mentioned I went through that, the VA program, PTSD deal? How do you think they do, how do you think that works? It works just like this. Give me the worst day of your entire life you experienced in combat. Now I want you to start from the first thing you can remember that day and tell me everything. Sights, smells, everything. Noises. And just take me all the way through it. 2 hours later, you're wrung out. Okay, good. You did really good with that. Go back and do it again. Okay, that was really good. Now, we recorded that. Every day this week, I want you to listen to that recording. Just immerse yourself. You don't get well by avoiding it. You confront it. And then you get into details. Well, what part's bothering you the most? Well, why do you think, was that your responsibility or was that somebody else's? You know, there's all kinds of ways we can look at this. So when we talk about cultivating a mindset, one way to never cultivate a mindset is never watch the news, never watch movies with violence, just try to stay in that little bubble. And then when it comes to you, you're not prepared. Do you see where I'm trying to go with this?
I don't understand that.
Huh?
Or I don't
Okay.
Can I,
If you isolate yourself from the evil in the world, which is kind of a worthwhile thing to do in a lot of ways, but rather than do that, see, I know a lot of my friends, their wives won't let them watch the news. They don't want to they don't want to hear about violence. They don't want to think about it. And then violence comes to you, you're in disbelief. You're no way mentally prepared. But if you do watch the news, and sometimes you do watch a violent movie or something, and you think, what do we do when we watch movies? So when I watch a movie, I'm in that movie. I put myself in the part of a character. Try to think, well, what would I do in faced with that situation? So I think that I'm more prepared by that attitude. So it's good to keep your kids exposed, not exposed to a lot of the bad stuff. And you don't have to live in it and dwell on it, but you shouldn't exclude it completely so that you don't have a plan. You don't. Yes.
yeah,
If you realize that you're in a dangerous environment, you're going to be more aware
Yes.
and concerned.
and just to give, just go a little bit deeper, I was driving down the highway one time with a buddy of mine, and I was driving with my knee. Sorry, police officer. So I was driving with my knee. Well, in California, growing up in California, we were in so much traffic growing up that I learned how to drive with my knee, eat a hamburger, chew some gum, do just a whole bunch of stuff. I got really good at driving with my knee. I'm a soccer player. I would flush the toilet with my foot. I mean, all the time, my legs were really, really good at doing things. Sometimes it was more stable for me to do this than this. That's hard to believe. My friend in the passenger side or seat started freaking out. Oh, we're gonna die! Get your hands on the and 10 and 2 and all that stuff. And I'm just sitting there going, what is going on? But the interesting thing I learned by that is people see the world the way they are, not the way the world is. Does that make sense? So if a bad person and a good person have a gun, who's gonna win?
Depends on the level of training.
That's a good point right there. But generally, who's gonna win? The bad guy. Okay, because they see the world the way they are. Okay, you don't want to kill this person wants to kill you. Who's going to win normally? Yeah, you have the attention. You don't want to hurt him because you're not a person that hurts people. So you have to get in your mind that there are bad people out there, and their mindset is that way. And if you had to do the old West trigger draw, they're going to win. Unless you get in your mind that if that person comes into my house, I have to shoot him. So what's really interesting is this. I'm obviously, I believe in the last days prophecies, right? That there's going to be really bad stuff happening before Jesus Christ comes. No matter what you believe, right? My beliefs are those. Okay. So I'm going through. I'm Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, going through the Book of Mormon, and I'm looking at okay, they said that this is supposed to be a pattern for the last days, and here's a guy named Moroni, and his dad Mormon. And they see all this death and destruction. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, I don't want to wait for death and destruction to happen before I'm exposed to that. And then I freak out. So I'm like, how do I get used to that? How do I get into that? So I'm like, I'm going to be a fireman. So now I'm seeing people die. And guess what I have to do? I see a person dismembered, dying, all this stuff. And then I have to get in the rig. And when everybody else is laughing about just what happened, and I'm going, oh my goodness, that's how they're processing it. Okay, they just saw this person die, be torn apart, and they get in and start joking because they can't handle the emotions. And so rather than doing that, they turn to me and say, how you doing, Marcelo? I go, I feel like crying. And I start crying to be able to handle it. And I'm like, that's the way I'm going to keep my emotions, by not trying to be tough and all that stuff. But the thing is, I'm exposing myself to things I don't want to expose myself to be able to handle those things. And then when that time comes, I can handle it better. And so then the next time that things happen, like last week, there was this incident in Salt Lake where I was speaking, and somebody had fallen on the floor, shaking, in shock, and all that stuff. And I knew how to handle it better because I put myself in that position to be able to handle it. And it can be mentally or physically, you put yourself in that position. Doesn't mean you have to watch every rated R show and, see everything like that, but you do have to have some type of mental exercise. Is that okay?
That was excellent.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Well said. Everybody understand where we're coming from? If you hide yourself and exclude the realities that are out there, then you may not be mentally prepared if they come to you. You need to expose yourself a little bit. First thing I tell people to do is watch the local news, because you probably don't realize how much crime is going on in your locale. You'd be very surprised sometimes, see how much is out there. It's not a matter of there's crime or there's not, it's a matter of how much is it. By the way, I want to just say one thing. He said something about, I can't remember, a ticket or something like that. I was talking to somebody here this morning about that. When I became a policeman, they gave me a ticket book. And when I retired 35 years later, I gave it back to them. I still had, out of 25 tickets, I still had like half of them are still there. I wrote a handful of tickets. I don't like tickets. I don't like traffic enforcement. It's essential because there are some people that will go crazy on the road. But yeah, I was always more interested in felony arrest than hitting Joe Citizen up for some traffic fine. So I'm just kind of defending that side of the law enforcement. There's a lot of guys that were like me that didn't like traffic. Anyhow.
Regarding isolating yourself from the bad, I don't remember if there's points on this slide or not, but you've already alluded to this. If you're confronted with something that is bad and you're surprised, what are the typical reactions for people? People say fight or flight, but it's actually fight, flight, or freeze. And more often than not, people are just in a state of disbelief and just don't do anything. And you're giving up that time to react appropriately. So if you're not prepared for those difficult things and have a plan ahead of time, you might not be able to react in an appropriate manner. And you just freeze, and that opportunity might pass you.
You know, people count sheep supposedly to go to sleep. What I do is I envision shootings. So I start, okay, where do I go? Well, I go to the Chevron station lot, all right? So what might happen at the Chevron? Well, this might happen. How would I deal with that? Where would I go for cover? You kind of, in other words, have a plan. Have a plan. Somebody, hey, you're sitting there watching TV and you say, right now I heard my front door go down, what's my plan? Well, most people's plan is go 3 rooms away and try to get into a lockbox and get an unloaded gun out. That's why there's so few self-defense shootings. That's not a good plan. My plan is roll out of the chair and use it for cover as I'm drawing my pistol, which I wear at home. It makes no sense. Yeah, I'm gonna wear my pistol when I go to the store to protect my wallet, I suppose. But when I'm at home where my family is, where my property is, where I am, well, I'm not gonna be bothered to wear a gun there. That is so upside down, it boggles my mind. But you've got to have a plan. I have a plan for that door right now. You're in a restaurant, you're eating, you notice where the door is, where the back door is, you notice different things. Okay, now I've kind of looked at the layout, I have a plan. What if somebody comes in as an active shooter and starts dumping everybody? What's your plan? If you have a plan versus don't have a plan, your reaction time might be 1 second versus 15 seconds. That's enough to get everybody killed.
Yeah, this gets covered quite a bit in the principles of personal defense later.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'll go one step further on that. Earlier today, I was noticing him. I'm thinking Larry Mudgett, but I think he's got a middle name. I think it's Larry Jason Bourne Mudgett. And, you know, is it two names? Just one? Just
Lawrence-
Born?
It's Lawrence
Maybe it's
Andrew-
just Born,
Lawrence Andrew.
right?
It's Andrew for President Andrew Jackson.
There you are.
That's my
Okay,
middle
Larry
name.
Andrew. Jason Bourne at Mudgett. Okay. But I noticed earlier today, I was talking to him and I did a little movement around him and I saw him just observe my movement. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. He notices everything. That's years of training. He's aware of things. There's a training for levels of awareness, right? His level of awareness is super high. But let me ask you just a simple thing. How many of you in a plane, when they say the exits are here, how many of you spend literally 10 to 15 seconds imagining, okay, if anything happens, there's a really big fat guy right in front of me, there's this and that, and there's the plane door, right? Or you're in a movie theater and you see the exits are in the front, right? It takes like 10 to 15 seconds to formulate a thought and it becomes a habit. Just like he's talking about, but it doesn't take, like, you don't have to spend half an hour trying to figure out, okay, that door right there, literally 5 to 10 seconds or less.
Thank you. Okay, everybody good? What's the most important weapon? Your mind. You fight with your mind. Your tools are ineffective without you, without your brain. So you must prepare your brain to fight just as you prepare yourself, your body, your tools. Everything else is supplemental to the mind. You must learn and cultivate the proper mindset in order to use force. And you first must accept the fact that you may be attacked today. When you walk out that door to go to your car this evening, unlikely as it may be, someone could accost you. And if you've don't have a plan, if you haven't thought about it, if you haven't rehearsed such things in your mind, likely you'll do nothing. Like in most things, preparedness is the key. Talk about that. Okay.
Just
What?
back up to the previous. It's just for the recording. Okay.
Part of mindset is accepting there's good guys and bad guys. That's just the truth of it. Sometimes when, as a police officer, talk about good guys and bad guys, and people relate it to when they were kids and they played cowboys and Indians or whatever. But the world is sort of divided between good guys and bad guys. Is self-defense moral? So we're going to talk about this a little bit because it is important, an important part of this. How many of you know who Dennis Prager is? Nobody? One, two? Yeah, when we were in California, I was on his show a number of times. He's among other things, he's a biblical historian. He's a student of all religions. Probably knows more about all the different religions than just about anybody else. And I learned, I attended some seminars, him speaking, and I used to listen to him on the radio on Sunday nights. And Jeff Cooper, I've already talked about a little bit. Jeff's background was he was a retired Marine Corps colonel, fought in World War II and Korea, and was part of the
OSS.
OSS, that's what I was thinking. Yes, the OSS. Anyway, and from both of these people, I heard the same exact thing. And I've since taken the trouble to look into it. When the King of England authorized the printing of the Bible into English for the first time, "Thou shalt not commit murder" was mistranslated as "thou shalt not kill." How many of you knew that? Raise your hand. "Thou shalt not kill" is not in the Old Testament. It's not in the Hebrew Testament. It doesn't say that. It says "thou shalt not commit" or "thou shalt not murder." What's the definition of murder? Unlawful, unjustified, illegal. Why does it matter? Because I've met many people who believe that if they kill in self-defense, they'll be damned for that.
They're
There is-
mistaken.
There is no such commandment as thou shalt not kill. How could we have an army to protect our country from other armies in other countries if killing is always immoral? How do we defend ourselves? We would all be slaves to some other country who didn't believe that. How do we have police officers to stand watch over us if killing is always immoral? How could that be? See how significant that is? The difference between thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not murder. So murder by definition is the unlawful killing of another. Killing were always immoral. We'd have no army, no police. We would be slaves. The morality of any killing is determined by the totality of the circumstances. That we're going to fall back on that expression so many times. Was it moral for you to use deadly force in this situation and defend yourself? That will be determined based on the totality of the circumstance. Some killings are justified. Some are moral, appropriate, necessary, an act of duty. At the LA Police Academy, we have a FATS simulator, firearms action training simulator. It's about as big as this wall right here, this section of wall. And it's all computerized and it registers laser impulses. So you stand over here as a police officer, maybe a couple officers, and then there's a scenario playing out on tape on the wall, but you're in it as you interact with the people in the movie. And so every recruit has to go through a test before they can graduate. And we had one class where about half the class got it wrong. I forget now how many, remember how many?
I thought you said it was about 17.
17 recruits. Here's the scenario. The elevator door is open in front of you. You see your partner laying on the ground, shot, and a guy standing over him about to shoot him again. You respond. What do you do? What should you do? You're interacting with the people on the film. You see that your partner's on the ground shot, the guy's standing over him about to shoot him again. What actions are you going to take? What are you going to do or say? Sorry? Shoot him. Yeah, I'm going to shoot him. The only way you can make sure that he doesn't kill your partner is to
Make him stop.
make him stop by shooting him. 17 of those recruits yelled, "Drop the gun." We fired them all. Yeah, you are not cut out to be a cop. This wasn't a situation where you had the right to kill. You had a duty. You had a duty to do whatever was necessary to save your partner. You failed. You see? Well, sometimes using deadly force could be an act of duty, not just a right. Yeah, I had a right to use force in this situation, but more so, I had a duty. Make sense? Here's some examples. Hostage rescue shooting. Guy's got hostages and saying with a gun, it's up to the hostage saying, I'm going to kill the hostage. Do you have the right? You really, if you have the ability, the means to stop that, and you don't, you missed the boat because you really had to a certain degree, you had an obligation to another human being, to an innocent person. Active shooter, guy while you're watching a movie or eating a dinner, and guy walks in and starts shooting everybody. Based on the totality of circumstances, would it be immoral to shoot him? Hell no. Suspect's about to detonate a bomb. If you had the means to stop that and save who knows how many lives, but you'd have to kill the guy to do it, is that going to be immoral? Some of these things are so obviously not immoral. You stop a suicide bomber and prevent 100 people from being killed, innocent people, that should be obvious. But sometimes killing someone is the right answer, sir.
As long as you're sure it's a bomb. Right?
Well, I said it was a bomb, so it is. In fact, we've got pictures of a bomber. Yeah. One of these slides coming up. Someone's about to murder your child. See, if somebody's about to murder my child, I don't just have a right to kill him. I have a duty. I have an obligation to defend that child's life.
Or even to just kidnap them in the parking lot of a market, right? Consider what the outcome of that would be for that child. Sex trade, whatever, torture, death. And they could be gone in a matter of seconds.
Now, one of our advanced classes, we did a scenario like that. There's a car, shopping cart, another car, and then we have so you're putting your groceries in your car, and you have your little child in the basket. There's a woman distracts you. And at that time, then a suspect runs from this man, grabs the kid, throws them in, and they're gone. So the way that the only way you could do this and make it work was, first, you shoot the distraction. Because if you don't, she won't allow you, she's going to grab your arms if you're trying to shoot her husband. You get rid of the distraction, and you try to back shoot him without hitting the kid. No, you better, if you have to save a family member because someone's trying to leave with them, you better be good. You better know what you're doing. One of them that we have in here, we'll see it in a minute. LAPD officer, he's out to dinner with his wife and another couple. They come home, they're getting out of the car, and a suspect who's been following them, shadowing them, comes up, pulls out a gun, takes everybody's money, and then takes the officer's wife and starts to leave with her as a hostage. The officer was a typically not well-trained shooter. He draws his gun and he fires at the suspect. He fires 5 shots. He hits the suspect 2 times, peripheral shots, nothing real good. Hits his wife in the head though, kills her. If you're going to stop somebody from kidnapping a family member, you better know what you're doing. How good do you need to be?
Close. But that should be a motivation to continue to train as well as you can. Because if the circumstance demands that, you want to have the confidence to be able to execute it and not just watch your loved one be dragged off into some fate worse than death.
Yeah, we want to let SWAT handle that if we can. But if they're leaving, now what? Are you going to let them leave? See, that's a problem. That's a problem. Now the guy I talked about, that my partner and I shot, the hostage taker, he committed murder the day before. And the day before that, he committed torture and rape. What's going to happen to these hostages if he leaves with them? Nothing good. It's for dang sure. So what are you going to do? You take a risk. I was taking a risk. I was risking the lives of those hostages. That's what I felt I had to do. Nobody's ever leaving with my family member. Nobody leaves us. We have a policy in LA SWAT. In no time will we ever allow a suspect to leave with a hostage. If we've got him cornered somewhere, no matter what happens, we may force a shooting, a hostage may get shot. Nobody leaves with a hostage. Hard, fast rule. Well, I keep that same rule in my life. Nobody leaves with a hostage. You have to decide for yourself. One of the things that'll make it easier to decide is a lot of skill on your part. You know what you can do.
And hopefully awareness to not be in that circumstance.
What's that?
Hopefully a level of awareness to avoid that kind of a circumstance whenever possible.
Well, yeah. Yeah, everything. Oh, in fact, a lot of what we're going to do today is about avoiding criminals and crime. One expression we have in karate and martial arts is the best way to win a fight is to not be there. Don't be in it. This shoulder, I volunteered for that fight. I fought hundreds of times in the street, criminals, and twice got hurt pretty bad. I didn't have to, but I felt it was my job, but I volunteered. But you as a civilian, you don't have to volunteer. You don't have to risk lifelong injuries. You can look at the totality of circumstances and weigh the consequences. Anyway, this is a suicide bomber. I think the Israelis caught her. She's still wearing the bomb, but of course they took away the device that initiates the bomb. But what about that? You see the bomb. Somebody said, what if she's, make sure, what if she's not a bomber? I can't remember who said.
Make sure it was a bomb.
Make sure it's a bomb. Well, I'm pretty sure that's a bomb. I've had enough training in bombs to say, yeah, I'm gonna bet her life that that's a bomb. Well, in the totality of the circumstances, this would just be one more of 15 different things you might be considering in your decision making. There's not a lot of perfection here. It's going to be degrees. She's being pushed. Well, you know, that's going to be based on the totality of services. For me, I'm thinking she's got to go. Now, one of the problems you have is a lot of these bombs are release activated, so they're holding that trigger down all the time. And if you shoot them, the bomb's going to go. But you might want to see that bomb go off somewhere before they get to a crowd. So you might just shoot them anyway.
You address non-lethal.
Yeah, and you're gonna, some of the shooting drills that you're gonna do are on non-lethal. You're
You
gonna do
mean-
live fire on some, I shouldn't say non-lethal, less lethal.
Yeah, there's a recommendation near the end of the presentation about things you should carry every day, and among those things would be a less lethal option.
We talked about the morality of killing, now we're gonna talk about the legality. Stand by, hold on to your hats. We have no authority under the law to kill or punish anyone. What? That's not what they told me in CFE class. No, show me in the penal code where it says, you can shoot someone, you can kill someone, you are allowed to kill someone. What you find in the law is, under certain circumstances, you may use force, including up to and including deadly force, in order to stop someone from certain crimes and actions. There's no blanket, yeah, you can kill this person. Never says that. You can use deadly force to make them stop doing what they're doing, and they may die as a result. But you'll never see the words in the penal code that say you can kill someone. So now here's what I want you to just put this in your subconscious and just drive it home. We shoot to stop. Exclamation mark. We shoot to stop. The only reason we shoot someone is to make them, whatever they're doing is so horrific that whether they die or not is a technicality that we'll deal with later. We have to make them stop doing what they're doing. What they're doing is so bad, so life-threatening, so horrific that we can use deadly force. And that's what the penal code says. If this person is committing certain kinds of crimes, certain kinds of violence, we can use force, including deadly force, to make them stop. And the key word, the operative word here that you want to just drive into your subconscious is make them stop. There was a police officer recently, about a year ago. She comes home, she lives on one of these apartments where you drive in and you park on the level that you live on, right? So you go into the parking lot, which is cased, and maybe you live on the 7th floor, so on the 7th level of parking, you park. So you just walk straight into the building. Follow? So that's how she lives. She stops on the wrong floor. She thinks she's on her floor. She goes to her apartment, or what would have been her apartment in relation to the parking lot if she'd been on the right floor. She goes to the apartment and sees damage to the door frame. The door is cracked open. And she looks in and she sees a big burly guy in there. And she thinks, she believing this is her apartment. So if you believe this is your apartment and you see damage to the door and you see a guy inside, what are you going to think? That's the criminal, that's the burglar that broke into my apartment. This is my apartment. Obviously he broke in. And now he's walking towards you. Now she's scared. Shoots him. Mistake of fact shooting. So she shoots him and kills him. During the prosecution, they simply asked this one question. When you shot him, did you intend to kill him? Yes. Gone. Prison. This is a police officer with a mistake of fact shooting, went to prison. Why? Because she said, I meant to kill him. That's all she had to do was say no. No, I shot him. He was coming at me. I deemed he was a threat, and I was trying to make him stop. I was trying to stop him. She'd be free now. The case went to appellate court, went to the Court of Appeals, and the Court of Appeals upheld the conviction and left her in prison. And the Court of Appeals said she admitted on the stand that she meant to kill him. We never mean to kill anyone. They may die when we make them stop with a bunch of bullets, but that's not our purpose. That's not why we're there. It's not why we're using force. Whether they die or not is not the point. The point is that we make them stop doing what they're doing because what they're doing is so horrible and dangerous. And you need to just have that pounded into your subconscious. Never forget it. Because that's just one example of somebody had a unfortunate mistake effect shooting for which she should be civilly liable. And she got convicted in criminal court and sentenced 20 years or something. We understand? Why do we shoot people? What? Make them stop. Make them stop doing what?
Whatever bad.
Something possibly life-threatening, or they're attacking someone in a manner to cause great bodily injury. There's the penal code lays it out. And where do you get that information? They should be teaching you that in your CFP class. But the penal code lays it out when you can use force. One thing to keep in mind, you may never use force in the United States to protect property. You cannot shoot someone to protect your property. You cannot kill someone to protect your property. Dogs are property. You cannot shoot someone to protect your dog. Horses are property. You cannot shoot someone to protect your horse. You can only shoot to protect the life of a human. Good? We never shoot with the intention. How will they know our intentions? Because we're stupid enough to tell them. We never shoot with the intention to kill, wound, warn, or harm. It's not why we shot. Killing may be the result of stopping. Right? Killing, we shoot someone to make them stop, they may die. But we shoot only to stop, period. Also true from a tactical standpoint. Now, here's what I mean by that. We had a policeman in Arizona. He goes to the restaurant where his wife works. He gets off, they work nights. He gets off first, so he'll go and sit in the restaurant at the cafe bar, you know, until she gets off and then take her home. So he's sitting in the bar or at the coffee bar, and some guy walks in with a sawed-off rifle and announces a robbery. And he starts taking the money from the cash drawer. Then he starts robbing the patrons. So this policeman slips out his gun. He's holding it down, kind of concealed under the bar. And when the guy walks up to him, he just goes, pow, pow. Puts 125 grain Remington core lock, 38 special plus P hollow points in the guy's heart. Shreds it. The guy then beats the officer to death with the rifle and walks out the front door where he collapses and is dead all along. Did the officer kill the suspect? Is he happy with the outcome? He killed the suspect. Suspect died. But what did he fail to do? He failed to stop him, which is always the point. From not only the legal standpoint, from the tactical standpoint here, in this scenario. It's still the point. Why did you shoot him? I shot him to make him stop, but I failed to do so and lost my life. You needed to shoot him some more. I didn't shoot him enough, right? Probably should have shot some more at least. He failed to stop.
A failure drill would have been appropriate, right?
Or one of several options. Yeah, there's different things he might have done. But he did not follow up. He did not stop the suspect. Okay. The mission of the pistol. This is a test question. This is on your test. What is the mission of the pistol? How does it differ from the rifle? Rifles and shotguns have one mission. Pistols have a different mission. What is the mission of the pistol? to protect ourselves and others from what? I'm sorry?
Evildoers.
Okay, but I just need one more word.
Say imminent threat.
Use the
Yes.
microphone.
That's good. Anybody
Imminent-
else?
Imminent threat.
I got it. That's good. That's helpful. That's part of the picture. But here's what the word I'm looking for. This is the key word. Unexpected. Unexpected. If we know there's going to be a fight, we don't go there. We call the police or we take a rifle. We only fight with pistols because we had no expectation a fight was coming. This is real important understanding. You really got to get this. We fight with pistols because we're surprised. The fight was a surprise. It was unexpected. If I said right now, I just was listening to the radio, there's a big riot going over here, and they're shooting people, and all this stuff is happening, you'd say, oh, no sweat, I got my trusty 38 on my hip, you know, whatever. Negative. You're going to get cover, call the police,
Leave the area.
get a rifle, get a shotgun. What did he say? Anyway, but you're not going to fight with a pistol intentionally. We wear them. That's the great thing about the pistol. We can have it with us at all times. We wear them. So now, if you understand, well, let's back up. How about seatbelts in our car? Oh, I'm going to drive home today, but I don't think I'm going to have an accident, so I'm not going to wear the seatbelt. No, we wear the seatbelt for what? Unexpected. Accidents, by definition, are unexpected, just like criminal assaults, by definition, are unexpected. So we fight with a rifle. We know there's going to be a fight and we can't avoid it. Not a pistol. Everybody clear? Okay. Yeah, what I like to, okay, let's say, here's an example. Let's say Ron and I are, or let's say Stacy and I are working a police car. We're partners together. So she's driving, I'm the passenger. Radio comes on. Active shooter. Massive victims, you know, whatever. Block away. So I'm going to go, let's roll, Stacy. Is that what I'm going to do? Is that what I'm going to do? What am I going to do?
Take the rifle from the rack.
I'm going to get the rifle or the shotgun out of the rack and check it and get it ready. Make sure it's charged. Because what? I've been forewarned. I already know there's going to be a likely need for deadly force. Now let's say I'm working a one-man car. I see a gray-haired lady run a stop sign, and I say gray-haired, blue-haired lady. She runs a stop sign, I pull her over, and I go up on a routine traffic stop. Only this is a bank robber wearing a disguise, just left the bank robbery, and he turns around with a gun. I can't go. Time out, King's X, I gotta get my rifle. Right? What do I have to do? I have to fight with what? What? What I have, my pistol. I'm not taking a shotgun to stop that blue-haired lady for a stop sign violation, right? I got my pistol. I'm going to fight with what I have because this fight was unexpected. I did not have forewarning. Are we getting the picture here? How this goes. Okay.
So we defend ourselves from an unexpected deadly threat with our pistols. The key word is unexpected.
So the mission of the pistol is different from that of the rifle or the shotgun. The purpose of the pistol is to protect us from what? An unexpected attack. Unexpected deadly threat, or however you want to word that. When we have no expectation that deadly force will be required, we fight with pistols. Now, if you take that to heart, if you believe that, if you understand it, if you If you see the obviousness of it, then the question becomes, when do I not wear my pistol? We wear pistols when we're to defend from an unexpected attack. When do I not wear my pistol?
When you're sleeping.
Well,
Oh, okay.
does sleeping with a gun under your pillow count? Yeah, no, I mean for me. Alvin York and Audie Murphy. Alvin York was the most decorated soldier in the First World War, Audie Murphy in the Second World War. They had one thing in common besides being decorated many times. They both slept with pistols under their pillows for the remainder of their lives. So people do that. Well, here's what I'm getting at. Here's the point I'm trying to get. If you understand and accept the premise that the pistol is for unexpected attack, then when should you not wear it? Never. You don't wear it when you legally can't. Otherwise, you are either an armed citizen or you're not. If you carry sometimes, that's nothing. Fate will make sure that something bad happens on the day you're not wearing it. So if you understand the purpose of the pistol, you're doing all this training, you're going to develop all this skill, and then some people are still not going to wear the gun. The purpose of the gun is because you're not expecting anything to happen. I told you that story. My neighbor wanted me to take him to the market. His car was in an accident, and he wanted to go to the store and wait for him while he bought a few things.
I like this story.
And I said, sure. And I took off whatever garment I had on. I was going to put on a jacket instead. And when I did, I had this was before automatics. I had a 4-inch 38 here, 2-inch 6-shot 38 on the left side, and extra ammo on my belt. And he saw that. He said, are you expecting trouble at the market? And I said, you don't see a shotgun in my hands, do you? I said, I don't think anything at all is going to happen. That's why I'm merely arming myself with these fairly inefficient handguns. He said, I just remembered I don't need a ride.
I don't really need to go to the market.
Anyway, I'm trying to beat this point to death. The purpose of the pistol, why do we train with them? Why do we want this skill? The whole point is to defend ourselves against something that we had no idea was coming our way. So if you accept that premise, the pistol is for unexpected, then when do we not carry it? Never. Only time you don't carry it is when you legally can't. You're going on a commercial airline flight where you're not going to carry your pistol. There's places where you just can't.
Or a court or a federal building or something like that.
Yeah. So short of that, you should carry your gun all the time. So I know we really drag that out and beat it up, but it's such a key point. You should be armed 24/7, 365, except when it is not legally possible. Being armed at all times is an insurance policy. It's far better to have a gun and not need it than need it and not have it, of course. We always fight with a rifle if we've been warned. Excuse me, when we know that there is going to be a fight, we should call the police, leave the area, obtain a rifle or a shotgun. If we know there's going to be a fight, we want this. We don't want a pistol. Being armed is a lifestyle. There's no such thing as unarmed security. Sometimes armed is unarmed. What does that say? Sometimes?
Yeah, if you're only armed sometimes, then by definition, you're unarmed because, as you mentioned earlier, fate will have it, the time that you're attacked will be that time when you're unarmed.
100 million gun owners in America. And only a few of them will defend themselves with a gun because they don't wear the gun. It's too much trouble. They get a smaller gun. And it's too much trouble to carry your gun. Find a different way to carry it. Find a different holster. Get a smaller gun. If you carried a Glock, the 380, 42,
42.
yeah, Glock 42, 380, and one spare magazine, you're ahead of 99% of the population. People can't be bothered to carry. Many a good American has been murdered just out of reach of a handgun that he should have been wearing. Colonel Jeff Cooper. Think about that. Many a good American has been murdered just out of reach of a handgun that he should have been wearing. We've talked about this before in our meetings. People think, yeah, somebody kicks down my door, whatever it is, I'll go 3 rooms away, and of course he won't stop me. And then I'll put a code in, or turn a dial, or get a key, and I'll unlock the box that my gun's in, then I'll take it out and I'll load it, and then I'll meet the threat. Well, it's so obviously unlikely that an intruder is going to just allow you to do all those things. It doesn't happen that way. And it doesn't happen that way as evidenced by the fact that we shoot so few criminals. Being armed occasionally creates a false sense of security. We do not carry because we expect to fight. Carry because we know that fights are by definition unexpected. We don't wear seatbelts sometimes. We don't have fire insurance on our homes sometimes. But do we think our homes are going to burn down? No. Still pay that insurance every year because it might. Something unexpected might occur. All criminal acts are unexpected. Okay, what time is it? Lunchtime?
Yeah, it's about 1:15.
Okay. We're going to do a couple things real quick here, and then we're going to go to lunch. First, we're going to ask for questions. Any of the things we covered today, did you have any questions about them? Any questions that didn't get answered? Really? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, there's been, you might help me with this, but I gotta remember what I was gonna say. A few questions regarding, for example, if you have an intruder in your house, and all is said and done, whatever happens, you're suddenly in a court of law, restating or whatever of the situation and what you said. And the concept you brought up about your intent is to stop, and an intruder comes in, you don't say, get out or I'm gonna kill you, I imagine there are ways to prevent damage to yourself if you are protecting yourself in your home and you are the victim. What are the certain things you should avoid or say instead to protect innocent people?
Well, that subject matter is the province of the CFP. Those are the kinds of things that we go to CFP for. And they would be the, what's the word I'm looking for? The arbiter of such things. So as far as giving somebody a verbal command, it's based on the totality of the circumstances that are known to you. In other words, if you look at the situation, people like to do what ifs, we never do them because you can just keep changing one variable and completely change the answer. So can I shoot an intruder in my home? Well, maybe. Depends on the totality of the circumstances. Well, he's coming towards me. Okay, but is he 10 years old and weighs 40 pounds and is not armed? You know, just because he's coming at you doesn't necessarily mean you are legitimately in fear for your life or your safety. So any scenario, we can just keep tweaking it. Well, can I shoot him if he was running away with my valuable property? No. What if he's carrying my kid, running away with my kid? Probably. And the answer probably is yes, but again, it depends on what? The totality of the circumstance. Well, yeah, it's your drunken brother-in-law in a family dispute. Well, maybe not. So you got to apply all the circumstances that you know to the situation and see how it comes out. I'm not much on verbal warnings. They might be beneficial in court, that you you made that last effort to try not to shoot. But as a matter of typical practice, I never was too much on verbal warnings.
Along those lines, I've got a couple questions, if you don't mind. So one of them is, I know, and I'd love for you to say not a good idea or good idea and tell me why. But I know some of the training that I got before, they said, you know, you should have a gun next to you when you sleep, right? You should have a flashlight and you should have a cell phone. Those are 3 things I've been told. And if somebody does come in, dial 911 right there, try to get to safety, get out of there if you can. But if you can't get to safety, leave that recording on and record everything. But if you need to, I mean, obviously in Texas, Utah, you go to court, there's going to be more sympathetic people towards you, right? Gun owners. You go to some of the liberal places, and no matter who has a gun, they're an enemy, right? They're a bad person. And so what some people had told me before is let 911 go, but exaggerate everything, you know? Hey, get out of my house. I don't want you in here. Please get out. I'm stuck. I can't get out. Whatever. I mean, you don't want them to know your details, Rob. That was a bad example. Yeah, don't hurt me or whatever. I don't want to hurt you. Stop. Please get out. Whatever. What's your thoughts on that? Is that a bad idea? A good idea? What would you do, or what advice would you give?
First thing I'm going to do is be prepared to defend my family. As far as calling 911, we'll get to it. That's not going to be, while I'm busy calling 911, he's going into my child's room and kidnapped him or something, you know. So that's not at the top of my list. I've got several people working in concert, and maybe one person can be at the ready and another person can call 911. And as far as these contrived confrontations, you know, and hollering different things, we could probably ask our prosecutor over here and see what he thinks about that. I don't know, but.
I am under no circumstance offering legal advice. Personally, I probably would avoid that if I could. I would not want a recording to be there in case I did not dot all my I's and cross all my T's.
Perfect. That's perfect. We're good right there.
Great advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next one is another trainer was saying that if somebody comes into the house, you have a safe word or something where you scream out for the kids to get down or get to cover in case, you know, get on the floor or whatever, in case bullets start flying. It has less of a chance of going through walls, hitting them and stuff like that. Do you recommend any type of protection or any type of drills that you would do for your family similar to that?
Well, in law enforcement, let's say you and I are partners in a police car. We'll have a code between us. Somebody gets one of us, get the gun up to our head kind of thing. Then we're going to have a code that means I'm going to drop. And then as soon as the victim drops, the other guy's going to open up. Things like that. But you're talking about trained people who are dealing with violence every day. Whether or not that would be work well with kids and stuff, maybe. I don't know. I've never heard that suggested before. But I could see that, for example, I'm always conscious of where the other bedrooms are, other people are sleeping. And I always know I've got a cone of fire and it's only that big. I can't shoot over this way. I just can't shoot. So I think the responsibility comes back. The responsibility is not going to be how well the other people react to your command. The responsibility is going to be yours because you've got the power. You can't call it back. I would count on knowing where you can shoot and taking care of that background thing yourself instead of trying to get others to take care of it for you. I think I would go with my own.
Okay. And any suggestions? I mean, if your family, I mean, you always want to have a route out of the house, right? Whether through the window or whatever to get out, right? Never try to get in a fight if you can't. Are there certain places you would tell your family or kids, whatever, to get in? Like in a bathtub. A bathtub is not going to do anything these days. They're all plastic. But is there any places where you would say if there's anybody bad that comes in, get to this place in particular, or get behind something, or what's your thoughts on that?
I don't know. There's infinite variables in a competition like that. It's kind of hard to predict. You might come up with a really great plan that might turn out to be the exact worst thing you could do, but you won't know until it happens. So I'm not opposed to the general idea, but I just wouldn't put too much weight behind it. Okay. How are we doing? We good? All right. How many of you brought your lunch? Okay, what we would like you to do, what we hope you can do, is go get your lunch and get a lunch and bring it back. Because that way we can answer questions and to go over some other things during the lunch break. Before we do break for lunch, though, we have one of our common practices. At each lunch break and at each day at the end of the training, we ask you to think about the training you received that day and think about what was significant. What was the most significant thing you learned? So you might think, oh, this over here was something I'd never thought about, was really an eye-opener. I had an epiphany. So whatever was the most significant thing to you that was covered today in training, we would like you to tell us what that was. Who would like to go first, or you take a minute, look at your notes. Okay, what did I learn today? What was significant? What really hit home?
I think the biggest thing for me was the mission of the pistol. I've never thought of it that way before, as it's a tool for the unexpected. So that hit me pretty good today.
Excellent, thank you. Next.
Besides mission pistol, also is our intent is to stop. That's deep, and the difference in that. So that was significant.
Yeah, so far we've got two of the most significant, most important points that we think you guys have regurgitated back. Go ahead. Who's up? Nobody? You learned nothing all day? Oh.
I do know that I'm going to have to cultivate a mindset as far as my scale of the seriousness of, am I going to carry a handgun or not carry a handgun? And I already know my limitations, but also what are my, advantages to that. But it's going to take me some time to really figure it out.
So you got more information now to work with and think about. Okay. Everybody's going to speak, so
I've got another one. You know, the 4 safety rules, to help memorize them, you know, we pick out key words, you know, obvious like never, always, keep. But in studying them, which studying for a long time, and looking at the way the sentences are structured here in this version of the 4 rules, what hit me was the word your. I think your is, except for the first one, yours in all of the 4 rules.
Hmm.
And the use of the word your is very significant. That goes back to, you said many times, that the responsibility is ours. It all comes down to us in the liability waiver. Every single time we are initializing that the responsibility is always ours. And that's very significant to always remember. This is not a casual thing, that in every single aspect, what I do and how I do it is responsibility is mine.
Excellent, excellent. And I want to follow up on something you started with, some key words. The first words of each sentence: all, never, keep, bees. All, guns are always loaded. Never, allow the muzzle to be covered. Keep your finger off the trigger. Be sure of your target. So if you take the first word, a little modified slightly, put it in a string and make a phrase out of it: I'll never keep bees. Then if you're trying to recite them and you get out of order and you can't remember where you are, you can just go back to that little slogan.
Mnemonic device.
Yes. And get yourself back on track.
For me personally, one of my takeaways, just over the last few weeks of working together, is I was more casual about wearing my gun, and we went out to the training together, and I noticed everybody had 2, 3 guns. I mean, not everybody, but there's like, I went up to Kyle, and he had 1 gun here, 1 gun there. I'm like, how many guns do you have on you? And I couldn't tell he had the guns on him. Here, I'll get up here. I couldn't tell he had the guns on him because he was wearing the right clothing. And then I'm sitting there going, man, you know, one of the biggest problems about me carrying a gun is I hate the weight. I hate the feeling. I hate all this stuff. And so I spent the last week with my wife, and we're like trying different holsters and trying, like, how do I get it to the point where I'm comfortable? And when I was at one place, I had a SWAT trainer that I was becoming friends with up in Logan, and he said, Marcelo, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to get used to wearing it a certain way. And after that, it gets normal. And if you wear it long enough, you feel kind of like naked without it. You know, like when you leave without it, you're like, something feels off. And I'm like, I got to get to that point. And when I saw Stacy the other day, and I'm thinking she's got a Glock 19 or 17 on her at all times and everything, and she pulls up her ankle, and there's this little tiny thing, right? I'm like going, okay, the point is to wear something, to have something. It could be a small, just have something. And so the takeaway I'm taking from today, especially in the other times, is don't try to be too perfect. Don't try to have the perfect gun. Just have something is better than nothing. Does that sound about right?
Sure, and you can always change guns later. Good job.
Wear 2 guns so you can balance the weight.
But one thing, I wear suspenders. And if I didn't, my belt would never hold up all the stuff I'm carrying. And if you get the right kind of suspenders, they're not inconvenient, they're not uncomfortable, and it makes a huge difference. You're taking, instead of all that weight's on your hips, put some here, put some of it here. Much more comfortable, because I do carry a lot of gear. So if you find that it's a difficult or uncomfortable or weight is an issue with all your carry stuff that you're carrying around now, you might look into it. I'll get the name of you know the name? Remember this? The suspender company? Yeah, they work differently than most suspenders, the way they attach everything. Very convenient. Just 2 seconds to put them on. So we'll get that information, get it out to you. I'd be in trouble if I was trying to carry all this stuff with just a belt. I would put my pants off. Really would. Yeah, I
Then you would really feel naked.
Yeah, I don't have enough hips, to cinch the belt down and carry stuff, so. Suspenders.
Any other takeaways or thoughts from today?
Okay.
There'll be more later.
All right, so we're gonna let these guys go get some lunch, bring it back and eat it here, okay? What time is it now?
It's about 12:30 now.
1:30. 1:30. And if you, whenever you get back, we'll start going into some things. Okay, but you'll have till 1:30 to finish your food. You're most welcome. Most welcome.